Chapter 3564. Ligua didn't have to do anything and didn't have to sacrifice much to find someone who could give birth to outstanding descendants for her race. She was simply trying to gain something without risking anything. What kind of honorable status was this? Once they entered the family, who could say for sure what their future life would be like? She went with the flow. In order not to be eliminated, everyone was trying their best to give birth to children to strengthen their race. She was just like an anomaly. In order not to be ostracized, she could only try her best to give birth to children. In the end, she agreed with the values of life. It was just like marrying a chicken and following the chicken. She had completely resigned herself to her fate. Ning Shu would rather stay in the organization than go to such a place. Giving birth was a torture to the body. When one saw a powerful race that seemed to have great abilities, one would want to borrow their seed and have sex with different people. It sounded great, but it was obviously torture and torture. Even a future leader like Ligua wanted to borrow someone's seed. She was no exception. It was obvious that those who didn't have a high status in the race wouldn't try their best to give birth to children. They would strive to give birth to stronger descendants. A mother's status depended on her son. But if the offspring were weak or disabled, what would they do? They would definitely be eliminated. Ning Shu deduced based on some details. She could tell the atmosphere of the race where Ligua was from just by looking at the big picture. It must be a repressed place. Even though they tried their best to give birth to children, kinship probably didn't exist. To a race, descendants were just an asset that could strengthen the race. There was strength in numbers. Moreover, the mother tried her best to give birth to so many children. How could the mother take care of them personally? It was possible that the people in this race didn't know their father or mother. It felt crazy. Ning Shu stood up and wanted to leave. He couldn't be bothered with Ligua. Ligua stopped Ning Shu. What do you mean? Ning Shu unceremoniously rolled her eyes. Can't you tell what I mean? I won't go to your race. Ligua frowned. What's so good about this place? You spirits are slaves in the organization. Don't you want to live a free life? Freedom? I'm not free here. Do you think I'll be free if I go to your race? If I go to your race, it's not about whether I'm free or not. I'll even become a sow that only knows how to give birth. Whether one was free or not had nothing to do with changing places. It depended on one's strength and mentality. In any case, she had lived for so long. Ligua wanted to win her over with just a few words? Was she dreaming? Go lie to the little mouse. Even little mouse couldn't be fooled. If he wanted to go, he would go. If he didn't want to, he couldn't force him either. Who do you think I'm retarded? Giving someone a body as a gift and then letting them give birth to children. Ning Shu, can't you see that I don't want a body at all? Why would I want a body? I don't need someone's seed to have sex with me. The body you mentioned is not attractive to me at all. In fact, I feel like laughing. Ligua asked, then what do you want? All right, let's not waste everyone's time. Ning Shu pushed Ligua away. Ligua stood in front of Ning Shu without moving an inch. Ligua said calmly, you'd better consider it carefully. Ning Shu crossed her arms and shook her legs. She looked at Ligua from the corner of her eyes. Do you want to take me away by force? You'd better take a good look at where you are. You can come and go as you please. Now, you want to take me away. Do you think there's no one here? Ning Shu's look was very annoying. Ligua felt her hands itch. She really wanted to slap her. She was just a weak human. She had already raised her conditions, but she still wanted to take advantage of her. She didn't know what was good for her. Ning Shu looked at Ligua. Move aside. A good dog doesn't block the way. Ligua took a deep breath and told herself not to be angry. Don't be angry. But Ligua's eyes were still a little red. Her body started to heat up. The Cheongsam man was about to go crazy. He was going to go crazy again. Ning Shu was still provoking her. This wasn't her restaurant, so she didn't care. If the restaurant was smashed, it would be her fault. The Cheongsam man wanted to throw the two of them out. He wanted to beat them up. Ning Shu's legs were shaking even more. She snorted and looked up at the sky. She really deserved a beating. Ligua looked at Ning Shu and said, you'll regret it. Ning Shu spread her hands. It doesn't matter. Whether I regret it or not is my business. Anyway, I won't go to your race. Li Gua smiled. Do you think you can live well in this organization? If the people in the organization know that you want to change jobs, will they let you live well in the organization? Ning Shu didn't care. Why won't they let me live? I'm more valuable alive than dead. She could handle the star stones and pick up the fragments. If there was a war, she could be used as cannon fodder. She was very valuable. The organization was cold and heartless. At the same time, they weren't petty. She could be targeted. There were so many mission enforcers. Don't think too highly of yourself. To Ning Shu, Li Gua's threat was like a gentle breeze. She didn't feel anything at all. Li Gua felt a toothache when she saw Ning Shu's nonchalant attitude. How annoying. If it wasn't for the will of death, Li Gua wouldn't have wanted to bring such a person to her race. From the looks of it, he was a restless person. Ning Shu informed the Grand Elder and asked her to come and take Li Gua away. She said that Li Gua had gone berserk. She didn't recognize anyone and was smashing things everywhere. She couldn't hold on any longer. She was going to be beaten to death. Li Gua asked, "Is it so bad to go to my race?" Ning Shu asked, "How is it good?" She kept giving birth to children. Was that a good life? Li Gua seemed to be very proud of her race. She didn't understand why Ning Shu rejected her. Ning Shu suddenly felt that even among void creatures, there were some who were not broad-minded or even narrow-minded. The void creatures weren't that scary. In Li Gua's race, Ning Shu saw the ignorance of void creatures. Maybe it was to survive and strengthen the race. Maybe it was because a person's personality wasn't important. Only the race was important. Give birth. Give birth. Ning Shu provoked Li Gua. Is your race really a void creature? Those who don't know might think that you're a rat or a cockroach. It's like you have reproductive cancer. You're sending yourself to be fucked just to give birth. I guess that the children you give birth to won't be very strong. The poorer and weaker you are, the more you want to give birth. Your race is probably the weakest in the void. If you're strong enough, you'll need to borrow the bloodline of a powerful race. You're like a thief. Ning Shu's face was full of disdain. Li Gua's eyes turned even redder. Her blood was restless. A strong smell of the sea erupted from her body. Chapter 3565. She was so agitated that she was in heat. The Cheongsam man was speechless. Fuck, why did she have to court death? Bad woman. Compensate him for the restaurant. Li Gua's nose trembled as she breathed rapidly. She gritted her teeth and said, "You can shut up." Ning Shu raised his nose to the sky. What's wrong? Did I poke your sore spot? Now you are angry from embarrassment. Li Gua felt that her mind was in a mess. The other party's voice drifted into her ears from afar. She knew that she was about to go berserk. Moreover, because she was in heat, it was easier for her to go berserk. The rationality in Li Gua's eyes had disappeared. Her eyes were bloodshot. Now, Li Gua only had eyes for Ning Shu. She only had one goal, and that was to kill Ning Shu. The Cheongsam man, Ning Shu, shouted, "Hurry up and get out. Don't fight in the restaurant." When the Cheongsam man saw Li Gua's body suddenly expanding, he felt extremely tired. Ning Shu nimbly dashed out of the restaurant. Li Gua turned around and chased after Ning Shu. He directly tore down the door and chased after Ning Shu in the Time City with heavy footsteps. The Cheongsam man was speechless. Ning Shu ran in front and waved at Li Gua. "Come on, let's have fun." Li Gua went berserk. Her body became bigger, but she was a little clumsy. She panted rapidly. Her eyes were bloodshot. She only had one goal in mind. Her race was easy to go berserk. Usually, they cultivated their bodies and minds. However, Li Gua was in heat now. Her blood was restless and it was easier for her to go berserk. She was ridiculed by a weak human like Ning Shu. He was indifferent to her recruitment and even mocked her. How could she stand it? She had to tear this hateful ant apart. The more berserk Li Gua was, the more powerful she became. Even her speed increased. She was about to catch up with Ning Shu. Ning Shu increased his speed. He dodged left and right to avoid Li Gua's attacks. However, he didn't fight with Li Gua. Many mission enforcers on the street looked up at the berserk Li Gua. What was this? They all moved away, but there were also some people who wanted to watch the fun. Ning Shu waved his hand as he ran. Come and chase me. If you can catch me, I'll let you. Because Ligua had gone berserk, her body was huge. Every time she stepped on the blue stone floor, the floor cracked. Some of the tiles on the buildings had already been affected, falling to the ground and shattering into pieces. It was quite a mess. Ning Shu was speechless. He suddenly had a bad premonition. Who would be responsible for this loss? According to the senior uncle's character, it must be Ligua's and hers fault. Your sister. She had to hurry to the void. As for the damage in the Law City, it had nothing to do with her. I don't know. It wasn't me, I didn't do anything. He thought that once he notified the grand uncle, he would come quickly. However, he had already run a few streets, and the grand uncle still hadn't appeared. Could it be that he was secretly observing from somewhere? Yes, that must be it. She couldn't let the senior uncle get hold of her weakness. Although she didn't do anything, she was being chased. Ning Shu wanted to use a space jump to leave the Law City and go to the void, but with a bang, his head hit the space wall. Someone had sealed the space and he couldn't leave. The senior uncle floated in the air, looking at Ning Shu and the unconscious Ligua. Seeing that Ning Shu couldn't run anymore, Ligua ran towards him excitedly. The space was sealed, and he could only run in such a small place. Ning Shu's senior uncle ran over, shouting as he ran, "Help, I'm going to kill him." The senior uncle avoided Ning Shu and stood to the side, watching coldly as Ning Shu was chased by Ligua, shouting and dodging her attacks. Ligua only had eyes for Ning Shu. Her target was Ning Shu. As long as she tore Ning Shu to pieces and killed him, her berserk state would slowly weaken. But at the same time, there were side effects. Gathering a large amount of energy in a short period of time would definitely lead to a weakened state. The senior uncle stood to the side, but Ligua ignored him. She didn't have eyes for him and kept chasing after Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. What's wrong with this person? Why isn't he stopping Ligua? He's just watching the two of them chase each other? Fuck, this person is really bad. Ning Shu leaned towards the senior uncle. Even if the senior uncle wasn't in Ligua's eyes, she would definitely attack him if he got close. As soon as Ning Shu got close, the senior uncle disappeared in a flash. Ning Shu almost vomited blood from Ligua's big fists. Ning Shu said, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" The senior uncle snorted. "Don't you like fighting? Continue fighting. I'll watch you fight." Ning Shu rolled her eyes. She really wanted to kill this guy. She had already created the conditions for the senior uncle, but this guy actually tricked her too. Ning Shu was furious. "I'm going to fight back. Previously, I avoided fighting. There was no reason for me to be suppressed." The senior uncle was really a dogman. He was annoying. Ning Shu raised her aura and wanted to pounce over to fight with Ligua. However, the senior uncle made a move at this moment. He stretched out a black rope towards Ligua. The black rope tied Ligua up, making her unable to move. Ligua struggled. However, the more she struggled, the tighter the rope became. The rope became thinner and thinner. It was like a steel wire that cut into her flesh. Although Ligua had gone berserk, she still felt pain. However, Ligua, who didn't have any consciousness, didn't stop struggling. The more she struggled, the tighter the rope became. The smell of blood floated in the air. Ligua was injured by the rope and blood flowed out. Ning Shu was speechless. She had just gathered her aura and wanted to fight with Ligua. However, the senior uncle made a move again. She was so angry that she felt terrible. It felt like she had punched cotton. It was really fucking uncomfortable. Gradually, the berserk Ligua slowly calmed down. The berserk period was over. Ligua regained her consciousness and looked at Ning Shu and the senior uncle in a daze. She moved her body and realized that she was tied up. She hissed in pain. Ligua glared at Ning Shu. Despicable. She was caught by the senior uncle again. Ligua immediately understood that Ning Shu had tricked her. He had deliberately provoked her. The senior uncle said, "Ligua, why did you make a move here?" Ligua denied. "I didn't make a move. I was just playing with Ning Shu." Ning Shu shivered. "No, she wanted my will of death." She wanted to kill me. I hid everywhere. Fortunately you came, senior uncle. In her heart she had already torn the senior uncle into pieces. However, Ning Shu still had to explain herself while shivering. Li Guo was speechless. Recruit my ass. If I had known earlier, I would have killed her. Who knew what would happen if such a person was recruited into the clan? Despicable, cunning and shameless. Lowly and disgusting humans. She had really been blind previously. She had been deceived by Ning Shu's amiable appearance. The senior uncle glanced at Ning Shu. Upon closer inspection, he seemed to be rolling his eyes. He said to Li Guo, "Looks like I have to send you home again." Li Guo's expression changed. She seemed to have thought of a certain scene. Fuck. Chapter 3567. They were a high-end race. They disdained to restrain their emotions in front of a weak and lowly human. Read the full story. Read the full story. Ning Shu was not a retard. Of course, she could feel it. A person who disdained her had to pretend to be polite to her to recruit her. She was not sincere at all. Especially the benefits she offered. She could not bear to look at it. She was trying to coax a fool. It made people want to throw a gas can at her. Li Guo did not speak. She took out 2 round jade-like objects from her space and said, "This is the energy that our race is born with. The growth of our children depends on this energy." This kind of energy was different from energy bodies. The energy bodies in the void were more precious. This kind of energy was gentler. Although she did not know what it was used for, she had to accept it since Li Guo took it out. Ning Shu immediately accepted the 2 energy balls. This was compensation for her mental damage. It would be a waste if she did not accept it. Li Guo saw that Ning Shu had accepted the things and said, "We were just playing around, right?" Ning Shu nodded. "What do you think is going on? Tell me." Ning Shu did not dare to say that they were playing around. She would be responsible for the damage to the city. Playing around, right? But since so many things were damaged, she had to pay for it. Ning Shu had to use all her tricks in front of the Grand Elder. Looking at it this way, it was clear that she had accepted the gift and had been forced to compromise. What can I do? I can only back down and compromise. I can still get something. Life is so helpless. The Grand Elder looked at the 2 women and snorted. Countless houses have been destroyed and the city is in turmoil. Are you playing around? See, I knew this would be the result. Li Guo said, "Actually, I couldn't control my body. Ning Shu tried to stop me, so this happened." Anyway, the situation had been twisted in another direction. Twisting the truth was probably the same thing. Li Guo was about to vomit blood. She clearly wanted to smash Ning Shu into a meat patty, but now she was trying to beautify Ning Shu's actions. This really made people want to vomit blood. Was there anything more sullen than this? However, in order to avoid paying a higher price, this lowly human was short-sighted and decided to give him something. But when the Grand Uncle opened his mouth, it would really cause a hemorrhage. It wasn't just a matter of bleeding, but a hemorrhage that would kill. The elders in the clan would definitely strangle her to death, and they would also question her ability. She was the future leader of the clan, but she had brought too many losses to the clan. Perhaps race would abandon her. She couldn't bring benefits to the race, and even caused the race to suffer losses because of her. It was normal for them to give up on her. Even if those elders usually doted on him, in the face of the interests of the entire race, no matter how much love they had, it would be worn away in the face of reality. Li Guo understood this very well, which was why she humbly apologized to Ning Shu and even gave him something. Thinking that she was about to be abandoned, Li Guo's whole body quivered, and her blood turned cold. Even her restless body cooled down. Her mind was unprecedentedly clear. She looked at the cold and ruthless Grand Uncle. She had never felt that the Grand Uncle was really cold and ruthless. He wasn't just cold and ruthless. When the elders in the clan heard that she was going to borrow the Grand Uncle from next door, they couldn't help but laugh. They said that the newborn calf wasn't afraid of the tiger. She wasn't convinced. If she stayed here permanently, she didn't believe that she wouldn't succeed. Everyone felt that they were different. They were different fireworks. The others in the clan didn't succeed, but it didn't mean that she couldn't. Even though she had lost 3 energy bodies, she still came. But how long had it been? If she was sent back, how would she face the elders in the clan and the other clansmen? Would they have to go to war? But the price would be greater. Would the clan go to war for her? Ligua's heart was cold. At this moment, she really didn't have any thoughts about the granduncle. She even took medicine to suppress her estrus. Now, it seemed that this action was unrequited love. Ligua raised her head and sniffed. She didn't let her tears burst out. What a cruel fact. She thought that after knowing the granduncle for so long, she thought that she was special in his heart. But the fact proved that she was special. Ligua straightened her face and said to the granduncle, "This is my fault. I shouldn't have gone crazy in your place. I'm sorry. I won't disturb you anymore. Please let me go." Ligua apologized because she wanted to let this matter go. She also wanted the granduncle to send her back to the clan. She knew the way. From now on, she would stay far away from the granduncle. The granduncle said coldly, "You're injured all over now. Your body's condition is special. You can't go back alone. When your family comes to me for you, where can I find someone to compensate them?" Ligua looked tired. She couldn't believe it and was sad. Her eyes overflowed with tears. She didn't expect the granduncle to be so ruthless. It was extremely cruel. He knew that if she was sent back, some people in the clan would question her behavior and shake her position as the future clan leader. But the granduncle still did it. He really didn't have any warmth for her. Even if it was someone he knew, he wouldn't be so ruthless. Ligua's clan would borrow the seeds of other clans, wanting to combine the advantages and abilities of other clans. But Ligua was still a young girl. Her feelings were always poetic. Even though she had lived for a long time, her thoughts were still quite simple. She definitely wanted to have children with the person she liked. She definitely liked the granduncle. Women had sex because of love. But she was broken by the granduncle. Her heart was broken. Because of various situations, her position was affected. Ligua trembled all over. She looked at the granduncle with eyes full of hatred. But the granduncle ignored Ligua's gaze. He didn't care at all. He didn't even care about any of her emotions. Whether she loved or hated him, it wouldn't arouse his attention. Ning Shu put away the 2 energies. Seeing Ligua so sad, even the creatures in the void land couldn't escape the fetters of their hearts and feelings. The granduncle was really a young girl killer. You could like anyone but him. He wouldn't feel guilty for hurting you, but he would never ask you to love him. Your sadness and despair, none of it has anything to do with him. From the beginning to the end, you were acting alone. He never gave any emotional response. When he rejected her, he was even more ruthless. Alas, another young girl's heart was broken. Ligua hated the granduncle to death. She might even turn into Limacho. The most ridiculous thing was that the granduncle didn't care at all. He didn't care at all. It made people hate and feel helpless. /BK. Chapter 3568. No matter how much Ligua acted coquettishly or looked at the granduncle with resentment, there was no room for change. At the end of the phone, Ligua was not only facing the loss of her race, but also the trauma in her heart, the pain of falling out of love, and the pain of being hurt. Sai, a girl? Her tenderness and sweetness were hurt just like that. Ligua looked at the granduncle helplessly. The granduncle said, "You've said what you need to say. Let's go. I'll send you back." Ligua struggled hard, and the rope around her became tighter and tighter. However, Ligua seemed to not see it. She struggled hard, and the thin rope directly cut into her flesh. However, Ligua felt nothing. Perhaps it was self-abuse. She was hurt and felt that the world was not important. She did not know if she wanted to punish herself or the granduncle. If she wanted to punish the granduncle, she was thinking too much. The granduncle would not care at all. Ligua was still struggling. The thin rope broke her blood vessels and blood oozed out. Ning Shu was speechless. A large-scale self-abuse scene. After all, there were people who committed suicide for love. They were in so much pain that they wished they could die. It was reasonable for Ligua to do this. Perhaps she had other motives. Perhaps she wanted to test the granduncle's attitude again. If the granduncle let go of Ligua, Ligua's goal would be achieved. What's more, Ligua had injured herself. If Grand Uncle Taishu sent her home, his race would have a slight advantage. If that was the case, then Ligua was also a ruthless character. There was a feeling of being invincible from now on. It felt like Ligua had completely given up on the Grand Uncle and was wholeheartedly thinking about how to reverse the situation. Ning Shu thought that the Grand Uncle would let go of the rope a little. After all, Ligua had been strangled like this and was covered in blood. If he brought Ligua in this state to her race, he would not have the face to ask for anything. However, the Grand Elder was still indifferent as he watched Ligua twist and struggle indifferently. If this continued, she would be strangled into pieces. People were very cruel to people they did not love. Just like how the Grand Uncle was to Ligua, she was to the heart. Ning Shu shrugged her shoulders. She didn't want to see this bullshit anymore. Watching too much would affect her mood. Ning Shu moved to the side, wanting to return to the system space, but he couldn't. The space was still sealed. Ning Shu's heart suddenly felt bad. Even now, they still hadn't let her go. They definitely wanted to punish her as well. Ning Shu sneered in his heart. Let's see if he can get a fine. She was a righteous hero. It was Ligua who went berserk because of her body condition and wreaked havoc in Time City. She was the one who stopped Ligua. Ligua had said it herself. She wasn't guilty, so the senior uncle couldn't punish her. He could not distinguish between right and wrong. Unable to leave, Ning Shu could only stay and watch as Ligua mutilated herself. Now, the thin rope had completely sunk into her flesh and could no longer be seen. The enclosed space was filled with the thick smell of blood. The Grand Elder let Ligua do whatever she wanted and looked at her coldly. Ning Shu was speechless. Since the Grand Uncle didn't say anything, she naturally wouldn't say anything. Should she give him a way out? Ning Shu wanted to give both parties a way out, but the Grand Elder definitely wouldn't let her go. Ligua was torturing herself like this, and she was angry in her heart. She wanted to torture herself to death. If she took the initiative to stop, it would be a bit embarrassing. Ning Shu coughed and cleared his throat. Ligua was the first to stop. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, there was coldness in them. Her whole body was filled with a domineering aura. Her temperament was much colder and more distant, as if she had grown up a lot. There was still resentment behind her cold eyes. Obviously, she hated the Grand Elder. However, Ning Shu wanted to be fair. In fact, Ligua had been thinking too much. She didn't get a response, so she resented the Grand Elder. She didn't get anything in return, so she resented him. I was so good to you. I was so affectionate to you, but you didn't love me. I hate you. Ning Shu reflected on herself. She mustn't fall into self-pity. Living in her own world, others wouldn't treat her as a fart. Even a fart would stink. Now, Ligua was really like a clown. She was the only one who wasn't emotional. The others didn't feel anything and even wanted to laugh. This was her own matter. It had nothing to do with others. Even if Ligua tormented herself half to death, the Grand Elder could directly say that she had gone berserk. In order to avoid other situations, he could only tie her up. Because she had gone berserk, she struggled without consciousness and became like this. Ligua said coldly to the Grand Elder, "Please send me back." Although her voice was cold and emotionless, her mouth was still trembling, causing her voice to tremble slightly. The Grand Elder, "Sure. Ning Shu, I can finally leave." Seeing a wave of love and hatred, and the scene of a young girl's heart being broken, she didn't feel particularly refreshed, only melancholy. The creatures in the void were the same. Ligua, a little mouse, she hadn't come into contact with many creatures in the void, but these two were both lovers. It seemed that intelligent creatures had emotions, and with emotions, they would inevitably be burdened by emotions. But without emotions, they were like puppets. In short, emotions were a double-edged sword. It was a symbol of high-level creatures, but at the same time, they would be dominated by emotions. One could imagine how complicated Ligua's feelings were now. The Grand Elder looked at Ning Shu and said, "You've damaged the city." Ning Shu looked at him expressionlessly. She had already created the conditions, and the Grand Elder wanted to eat from both sides. Ning Shu said insincerely, "Sorry, In order to stop Li Guo from going berserk, I was afraid of hurting others, so I didn't pay attention to this. Although I was injured because of this. If the Grand Elder wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river, they wouldn't be able to cooperate in the future. Everyone had a tacit understanding, but he turned his back on them. This was too uncooperative. Ning Shu looked at the Grand Elder. Everyone solved Li Guo's problem at the same time to avoid being harassed by Li Guo. You fucking stop acting like a judge. This was cooperation. The Grand Elder said. If you cause trouble next time, you know the consequences. Ning Shu rolled her eyes, snorted, and turned to leave. As a result, she bumped into the sealed space wall. Ning Shu looked at the Grand Elder. Please open the sealed space, thank you. The Grand Elder said coldly, you have no remorse. Reflect on your mistakes in here. Ning Shu chuckled. What do you mean by repentance? Was she going to confine her? The Grand Elder sneered. It's something that everyone has a tacit understanding of. Did he mean that she deliberately provoked Li Guo, and Li Guo damaged the buildings in the spatial city? Ning Shu said, then how long do I have to reflect on my mistakes? /BK. Chapter 3569. Ning Shu still wanted to find the silver-haired man and ask him why he had told Li Guo her information. Now that she was locked up by Senior Uncle, what should she do if she couldn't go out? Instead of a fine, he was now being punished to reflect on his mistakes. No matter what, it was still a punishment. Ning Shu looked at Senior Uncle expressionlessly. Senior Uncle sneered. Do you think you're right? You didn't cause any trouble? Ning Shu rolled her eyes. I think it's okay. I'm just doing what's right. I'm a hero. Senior Uncle didn't want to talk to Ning Shu anymore. These words could only deceive people who didn't know the truth. Senior Uncle held the rope and was about to take Li Guo home. Ning Shu quickly asked, how long do I have to face the wall? Senior Uncle was so busy. If he locked her up here, he might forget about it. How long would she be locked up? Senior Uncle might deliberately lock her up for a long time. Ning Shu didn't think that her space law was stronger than Senior Uncle's. After all, Senior Uncle was an old man who had successfully crushed her in age. Senior Uncle's comprehension of time was definitely much stronger than hers. In the past, he used resources to punish her. Now, he was going to punish her mentally. Face the wall. Senior Uncle said, when you know you're wrong, you'll sincerely recognize your mistakes. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. Senior Uncle and she had done the same thing. They were jackals of the same tribe. Senior Uncle was right and she was wrong. Right, wrong? What standard was it based on? What standard? There was no standard. It was based on Senior Uncle's standard. If you're not convinced, you can get lost. Ning Shu wondered if Senior Uncle wanted her to take the initiative to pay the fine, like Li Guo had given her 2 energy points. Using practical actions to express his sincerity and deeply recognize his mistakes? Thinking of this, Ning Shu felt that it might be the truth. Then, she would rather face the wall and reflect on her mistakes. Her sister had endless time. If there were no accidents, she would be immortal. She didn't have much, but she had plenty of time. Senior Uncle was so shameless now. He wanted energy in such a roundabout way? Ning Shu said, Judge, don't worry. I will definitely reflect on my mistakes and deeply recognize my mistakes. I will be a good young man who doesn't let down the organization. Wanting energy was like living in a dream. She wouldn't hand over what was in her hands so easily. Ning Shu said as he sat down. He took out a kidney-strengthening fruit and munched on it. Since he was so bored, he might as well eat some snacks. The Grand Elder looked coldly at Ning Shu. He sneered and a cold light flashed through his eyes. Ning Shu, worst comes to worst, I'll just sit in jail for a long time. Laugh your ass. Ning Shu also sneered and took a bite of the kidney-strengthening fruit. The Senior Grand Elder even pulled Li Guo, who was tied up like a dumpling, away. Li Guo looked back at Ning Shu and said, I want to talk to her. Now, Li Guo was like a fat sheep to Senior Uncle. Of course, he wouldn't refuse such a small request. The Grand Elder stopped. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at Li Guo. He wanted to hear what Li Guo wanted to say to him. Li Guo looked at Ning Shu. Her lips moved, but she didn't say a word. Ning Shu scratched his head. What was she doing? She looked at him quietly without saying a word. What a coincidence. Those who didn't know better would think that this person liked her. Otherwise, why would they look at each other with tears in their eyes? If you don't want to talk, then leave. The Grand Elder wasn't a patient person. Li Guo also knew that this was probably the last time she would come here. She wouldn't step into this place again in the future. Li Guo's voice was a little hoarse. You will regret it. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Is this a threat? Li Guo shook her head. It's not a threat, but you will regret your current life. You are a slave who is required to be obedient. Your life and death are controlled by others. They can do whatever they want to you. Like now. Li Guo smiled. The Grand Elder has taken all the benefits, but you have to be locked up here. Ning Shu also sighed. It's the same no matter where you are. Strength is the most important thing. If you go to your race and become a sow, you have to strive to give birth to strong offspring. Isn't that a tragedy? Everyone gave birth to children. When someone behaved differently, Gidge wouldn't enter. As a slave here, at least she could escape from an ordinary life. At least she could pursue her own personality, and no one would talk about giving birth to children. The information was about which races were strong and which races could be borrowed. Wasn't this another way of being a slave? Only by being strong could one break through everything. Li Guo was silent for a while. Her clothes had been soaked by the threads, and some of them had turned black and red. Her long hair fluttered slightly, giving people a soul-stirring sense of beauty. Maybe you're right. Li Guo only said this one sentence. She turned to the Grand Elder and said calmly, Please send me back. Li Guo's pretending to be calm didn't affect the Grand Elder at all. No one cared whether she was really calm or pretending to be calm. Ning Shu said to the Grand Elder, When the time is up, remember to let me go. The Grand Elder ignored Ning Shu and pulled Li Guo away. Wherever Li Guo walked, there were drops of blood on the ground. It was a bit difficult to be locked in a place full of the smell of blood. Ning Shu squatted in the corner and ate the kidney-strengthening fruit, thinking about some trivial things. He thought about the matter with Li Guo back and forth, and finally just sighed. Li Guo was in such an awkward situation now. It was all because of her own wishful thinking. After eating the kidney-strengthening fruit, Ning Shu had nothing to do. Especially in the enclosed space, there was no sound at all, and it was quiet. In fact, this kind of environment was the most torturous. Ning Shu found something to do and wiped the blood clean. After all, it was the place where she was facing the wall, and it was so bloody that it was unsightly. After wiping the blood clean, Ning Shu had nothing to do again. He couldn't even contact the system space. If he couldn't contact the system, time would pass quickly if he talked to Dan Qing. Time was hard to pass. When would the Grand Elder come? Ning Shu tried to break through the space lock by herself. She still had to continue to understand the space law. Otherwise, anyone could lock her up in the future. She really had no dignity. She always felt that she would have many days in prison in the future. She had to understand the space law more, so that it would be easier to escape in the future. The space law was really torturous. This thing was really hard to understand. Ning Shu hit the wall again and again. Her head hit the space wall again and again. It was really painful. Without such a hard spatial wall, the Grand Elder must have compressed the layers of spatial walls to form such a solid space. She couldn't even break through it. Ning Shu was frustrated. It was difficult for her to understand the space law, but it was so powerful. Others were very good at it, but it was as difficult as eating shit for her. /BK. Chapter 3570. Why wasn't the Grand Uncle here yet? Could it be that he was still bargaining with spittle flying everywhere? Ning Shu squatted, holding his chin with his hand, and looked at the narrow space. It created a space out of thin air. How was she going to open it? Ning Shu's mind worked quickly, and he used his understanding of the space law to open it. But his understanding of space was not deep enough. Or he could just destroy it violently. Ning Shu moved his neck, and the black god-beating whip appeared in his hand. He hadn't taken out the god-beating whip for a long time. He didn't know how effective it was when it absorbed energy. Ning Shu's arm shook, and the whip hit the space wall with a bang. The entire space shook, and then, there was no more. It was still the same as before. Ning Shu was speechless. This space wall was really sturdy. If it was an ordinary space, being hit by the god-beating whip like this, it would at least have a little reaction. Ning Shu lashed her whip a few more times, but the space only trembled slightly. Ning Shu was tired from swinging the whip, but the space was still the same. He really wanted to drill it with an electric drill. Ning Shu sat down and placed the whip beside him. It seemed that the god-beating whip wasn't strong enough. However, compared to before, Ning Shu felt that it was much easier to use the god-beating whip now. After all, the consciousness in the god-beating whip wasn't hers in the past. Now, it truly belonged to him. The connate cardinal treasure in the void should be cultivated more. If his brain really didn't work, comprehending the space law would be like eating lotus roots. He had to have a handy tool to blow up the space. In short, he had to be prepared. The current god-beating whip didn't have such an ability. However, the growth limit was very high. He believed that when it grew, it would definitely be able to blow up the space and even destroy the plane. Of course, it would definitely be very, very powerful. That would definitely be a long, long time in the future. But how should he cultivate the god-beating whip? The god-beating whip wasn't human. It needed to eat to absorb energy or cultivate. How should he cultivate the god-beating whip? Ning Shu was still puzzled when the god-beating whip moved slightly. It really moved. Ning Shu placed the whip on the ground. He did not touch it, but the whip moved. Ning Shu held the whip in his hand, and a faint consciousness was transmitted to Ning Shu. It was very faint, and did not carry any emotions. It was an ignorant and pure consciousness. Ning Shu was overjoyed. In any case, this was an innate supreme treasure from the void. In the future, it could grow on its own and he might have another companion. It would be best if it was a baby wearing a puffy skirt, white knee-length lace, with a long double ponytail. My God, it was so cute. Ning Shu would definitely dote on her like an ancestor. As long as it wasn't a boy, it was fine. She was too annoyed with these naughty brats. How could they be as cute as girls? Ning Shu chuckled. You and me under the funny tree. Ning Shu thought about it and took out 2 energy bodies. This was the compensation for the mental damage that Li Guo had given him. But Ning Shu really didn't know where to use this energy body. Maybe the organization needed it, but she wouldn't take it out unless the organization gave her something in exchange. Whose things were blown to them by the wind? Ning Shu gave one of the energy bodies to the whip. He didn't know if the whip would absorb it. This energy body was brought from the mother's womb. He didn't know if it was pure or not, but it probably wasn't very pure. The whip was indifferent. Clearly, it wouldn't absorb it. Also, it suddenly came back to life and didn't move anymore. Alright, its taste was quite high-end. It wouldn't eat such things. In Ning Shu's imagination, it was a little girl with her chin raised high, looking wronged and proud. Oh my, it was so cute. In Ning Shu's heart, the whip was already a cute little girl. He probably had to wait for Li Wen's energy body. He felt that it was more suitable for the god-beating whip. It had an incomparably sharp feeling. Ning Shu stroked the god-beating whip for a while. Although the surface of the god-beating whip had protruding scales and was a little prickly, Ning Shu felt that he was stroking the smooth skin of a baby. She was probably a little perverted. Putting away the god-beating whip, Ning Shu began to explore the space nodes in this space. Since the violent route didn't work, then he would take the technical route. If he found a point to break through, he would be able to get out. However, Ning Shu was dizzy from the dense space nodes. He didn't feel this way when he looked at the space nodes before. It felt like countless space nodes were compressed together. Trypophobia was about to act up. It affected her mood to comprehend the space laws. Ning Shu calmed down to comprehend. He didn't want anyone to be able to lock her up in the future. Drawing a circle was very simple for people like Taishu Sang Liang. It was just a matter of raising a hand. This way of fighting was high-end and classy. There wasn't the slightest bit of smoke and fire, and he didn't have to dirty his hands. It was tiring. Ning Shu felt that if he wanted to crack it, he had to draw a circle first. No, he had to use the space nodes to build a space. In fact, the principle was similar to building a space tunnel. Ning Shu began to make all kinds of spaces. Some were big, some were small, and some were of different shapes. However, compared to the space made by Taishu Sang Liang, her space was much weaker. The space walls were also weaker and not very strong. Ning Shu's current goal was to make a space that was stronger than Taishu Sang Liang's. Once he figured out the principle of production, cracking it would be a matter of minutes. Ning Shu made all kinds of spaces like kneading dough. He made them and then dismantled them repeatedly. Although it was difficult to comprehend space, he still had to work hard. Come on. Ning Shu was addicted to creating spaces. He could create spaces between his fingers. This was a magical thing. Creating things in the air was like this. Using the space nodes to intertwine, he could pour tea and drink water even without a cup. It was very awesome. Kacha, kacha. There was a chewing sound in the space. Ning Shu looked left and right. What was that sound? Ning Shu saw a black spot the size of a needle tip appear in the corner of the space. Then, the black spot grew bigger and bigger. Then, a mouse head came in from the hole. The little mouse head came in, twisted its neck up and down, left and right, and then gnawed on the space wall. Gnawing on the space wall was like eating a crispy corner. The kacha was quite crisp. It was chicken-flavored and crunchy. Ning Shu was speechless. This was the real simple and crude way to eat the world with one bite of teeth. Even fancy things couldn't beat this simple and crude way. Ning Shu looked at the little mouse. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the little mouse's teeth. What were these teeth made of? Why were they so awesome? Even Taishu Sang Liang couldn't open his mouth and chew on the bitwall. The little mouse bit the hole until its body could enter. Then, it stopped biting and squeezed in from the hole. Chapter 3571. The little mouse came to Ning Shu and asked, "Who locked you up here? I've been looking for you for a long time. The smell has faded." Ning Shu had an ominous feeling. What's that smell? Did the little mouse pee on her? She smelled like the little mouse's urine? That was how the little monkey found people. Ning Shu's impulse to pull out the tooth was finally replaced by a feeling of panic. Ning Shu looked at the little mouse expressionlessly. The little mouse said without noticing, "If you stay with me for a long time, you'll eventually be stained with my pheromone." What's with that expression? Let me tell you, with my pheromone on you, my people and subordinates won't attack you. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. You still have people and subordinates? Ning Shu raised her arm and smelled it. She always felt that there was a strange smell on her body. It was the smell of a dead mouse. She didn't want to be stained with the little mouse's smell at all. That's disgusting. Can you get rid of this pheromone and smell for me? She felt as if she was walking on the road and a dog had suddenly retreated and peed on her foot. It seemed that the little mouse could sense Li Wen probably because of the pheromone. This was a little fucking disgusting. Ning Shu wanted to jump into the reincarnation pool to wash the smell off her soul. Of course, jumping in meant going to reincarnate. It would be best to scoop some water from the reincarnation pool and pour it on her body. Ning Shu didn't want to talk about the pheromone and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" With the little mouse here, she might be able to get out. But the problem was that if she got out, she might be locked up for a longer time next time. The little mouse said, "Li Wen wants you to go over." Ning Shu asked, "How did you contact Li Wen? Wasn't little mouse in the system space? How could he contact Li Wen who was so far away? Did they have some special way of contacting each other? But if there was a special way to contact Li Wen, why didn't little mouse contact Li Wen for so long?" Little mouse said, "I went to look for her. I don't know where you went. I was bored in the system space alone. Dan Qing didn't talk to me. I was really bored." Ning Shu was speechless. Dan Qing didn't want to be a rational person. If it were her, she wouldn't want to talk to little mouse either. Ning Shu played with the space in his hand and asked, "Why is Li Wen looking for me?" Little mouse said directly, "He asked you to go and get something. The energy body has been taken out." Ning Shu immediately became excited. So fast. Li Wen was still the reliable one. She kept her word and gave her what she said. She was just thinking about how to cultivate the cute girl with the holy whip. Now there was an energy body. If the holy whip absorbed such sharp energy, it would definitely go further. But she was now in confinement. Was it really okay to go out now? Ning Shu was a bit hesitant. Anyway, Ning Shu felt like he had been in the space for a long time, but he didn't know how long it had been in the outside world. Without senior uncle's permission, what would happen if she ran away? Ning Shu looked at Little Mouse. Little Mouse took 2 steps back. What's with that look? Ning Shu said, You kidnapped me. I'm innocent. Little Mouse was speechless. Crazy? Yes, it was Little Mouse who kidnapped her. Ning Shu said to Little Mouse, Keep biting. Bite a big hole so I can go out. Little Mouse's black bean-sized eyes rolled and said, Give me a world origin and I'll bite. Oh, you've learned to take advantage of the situation. Not bad, not bad. Your IQ has improved. But did you think about the consequences? Ning Shu snorted and looked at Little Mouse expressionlessly. You eat my food and stay in my house. Now I'm asking you to do something and you want benefits? You're probably not hungry enough. Ning Shu decided to starve Little Mouse for a few more decades. It was so hungry that it could even eat glass shards and wood shavings. Little Mouse also snorted. You don't want the energy body? Forget it. Ning Shu pointed at the fist-sized hole. Get out. Don't appear in front of me. Don't stay in my system space. Go accompany your Li Wen. Bad temper. What's wrong with women these days? They're not like the girls in Li Wen's harem. They're gentle, considerate, talented, and good at music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Little Mouse felt that it hadn't done anything yet, but the other party was furious. What kind of woman was this? Ning Shu sneered. If your Li Wen wasn't the emperor, who would have the patience to serve him? He was the boss, the person who fed him. In the service industry, of course, they had to serve him well. Then, they would be promoted and get a raise in salary. If Li Wen was a beggar, gentle, considerate, and talented, the girls who were good at music, chess, calligraphy, and painting wouldn't even look at him. Therefore, there was no cause and effect. Little Mouse's view of women was very narrow. It only knew how to talk about Li Wen's harem. Perhaps Little Mouse was the emperor's pet at that time. The harem's harem naturally had to think of ways to treat Little Mouse well. Therefore, Little Mouse's impression of women was very superficial. Today, I'll teach you how to behave. Little Mouse couldn't out-talk Ning Shu. It held its anger in and bit at the spatial wall. It was originally a small hole, but now it had become a dog hole. Ning Shu could definitely crawl out, but he didn't want to. Bite harder. I want to walk out. I'm tired. I don't want to bite. Little Mouse sat on the ground. It's too hard. My teeth hurt. Well, she was now escaping from prison. Escaping from prison didn't pay attention to good posture. Ning Shu squatted down and crawled out of the dog hole with his upper body. However, a pair of black shoes appeared in front of him. He looked up and saw black pants. He didn't want to guess who the owner of this pair of shoes and pants was. Ning Shu silently retreated into the hole. Little Mouse was still shouting in puzzlement. What are you doing? Why did you crawl back? Are you still going? Li Wen is still waiting. Ning Shu scolded loudly. You damned rat, you dare to kidnap me and threaten me. Little Mouse was speechless. Are you crazy again? Ning Shu frantically winked at Little Mouse. Little Mouse said helplessly, This spatial wall is really hard. It's not good for my teeth to chew too much. Can I just make do with this big hole? Ning Shu was speechless. I just want to see how stupid my teammates can be. It's fatal. Why does Little Mouse have so many brainless operations? Senior Uncle didn't come in. He just sealed the hole and didn't say anything. Now, he also locked up Little Mouse. Ning Shu leaned against the spatial wall, wanting to hear if Senior Uncle had left. However, there was no sound from outside at all. Maybe he left. Maybe the spatial wall isolated the sound. Ning Shu sat down miserably in the corner. Chapter 3572. Ah, why did it grow again? The little mouse was surprised to see that the space wall had been repaired. Didn't it bite a big hole? Why did it grow again? Ning Shu rolled her eyes. Little Rat's brain was full of shit, and shit was poisonous. Ning Shu casually patted the space wall behind him and said directly, "Senior uncle, I know you're outside. I've reflected on my actions. Let me out." She was now in a hurry to finally want to get the energy body so that her whip could evolve. Although she would get the energy body sooner or later, the sooner she got it, the sooner she could evolve the god-beating whip. If this dragged on, accidents might happen. Most importantly, Ning Shu didn't know if the senior uncle had heard the little mouse's words. The little mouse had said something about the energy body. Ning Shu believed that this time, even the little mouse wouldn't be able to bite open the space wall. If the little mouse bit open it again, wouldn't it be a slap to the senior uncle's face? He would definitely reinforce the space wall. The little mouse was probably the legendary Jinx. Whoever got in contact with it would be unlucky. The senior uncle's voice came in, and the whole space responded. It was like the cry of a whale, deep and ethereal. "You don't agree with me. Have you seriously reflected on your actions?" Ning Shu sneered. "He's reflecting on himself." "I still don't agree with you." Ning Shu's face was indifferent. "Then please tell me, what did I do wrong? What should I reflect on?" She had done the same thing as the senior uncle. There was no difference. The only difference was that she was locked here in the wrong direction. Ning Shu said, "I don't even know what's right and wrong. How can I reflect on myself?" It was just that she was weak and the senior uncle was strong. If the grand uncle was locked in here, then it could be said that the grand uncle was in the wrong. The senior uncle's actions really made Ning Shu nauseous. "Grand uncle, based on the fact that I'm outside and you're inside, based on the fact that the damage to these things in the Law City is related to you. Have I ever forced you to break something? Don't make yourself sound so aggrieved. Have I ever forced you to have a conflict with Ligua? This conflict was completely avoidable. You were the one who started it. Now you feel wronged, pretentious. Why don't you cry a little more and say that you're a woman so that others will take pity on you? You want equality when you're enjoying yourself, but when it's time to take responsibility, you use the fact that you're a woman as an excuse. You want equality, yet you want others to accommodate you. Who do you think you are? Being a whore and wanting a chastity." This answer was within Ning Shu's expectations. It was a matter of strength in the first place, so there was nothing to be angry about. The Grand Elder's undisguised poisonous tongue really made people angry. Ning Shu took a deep breath. She regarded Tai Shu as a temporary collaborator. At least the two of them would benefit together. However, the grand uncle was disdainful. He didn't even think that they were collaborators. The judge's attitude was very clear. Ning Shu smiled. She clenched her fists so hard that they were sweating. Finally, she loosened her fists. She understood that a judge was a judge. There was no such thing as a collaborator. She blurred her identity. From now on, no matter what she did, Tai Shu would be the first to be a collaborator because he was a judge. Ligua thought too highly of herself, but so did she. She thought that it was a mutually beneficial thing. Her face hurt. Ning Shu knocked on her head. Stupid. It was necessary to contribute to the organization. If one made a mistake, they would be judged. How could she forget this? As long as she was in the organization, she would be judged. There was no sound outside. She guessed that Tai Shu had left. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. She leaned against the spatial wall and yawned. She was going to rest for a while and slowly study the spatial laws. She didn't believe that she couldn't get out. Seeing that Ning Shu wanted to sleep, the little mouse said anxiously, "What are you doing? We still have to go out." Ning Shu said indifferently, "How do we get out?" But the little mouse walked in front of the spatial wall and opened its mouth to bite the spatial wall. The sharp and unpleasant sound of the teeth scratching the spatial wall was like fingernails scratching a blackboard. It gave people goosebumps and chills. The little mouse tried its best to bite, but it couldn't open the wall at all. There wasn't even a trace. The little mouse was still biting tirelessly. Ning Shu simply blocked the chilling sound and closed her eyes to rest. Some things were still very embarrassing and humiliating to be exposed in such a straightforward manner. One day, she would beat Tai Shu until he knelt on the ground and called her father. Even if she couldn't beat him, she would use endless years to torture Taishu to death. When he was about to die, she would spit on him. She would let him die with hatred. Of course, this was just one of her small wishes. When she was strong, she would also look at Taishu as if he was an ant. Ning Shu didn't have the magnanimity to swallow her saliva. It was one thing to understand, and another to go smoothly. I understand the reason, but I still have to do it. The little mouse was finally tired and stopped biting. It lay on the ground and panted. It touched its teeth with its paws. Its teeth were shaking and looked like they were about to fall off. The little mouse teared up. What should we do? Li Wen is still waiting for us. Ning Shu was speechless. The pigsty was empty, and you were in the human world. Was Li Wen so stupid that he didn't do anything and just waited? He must have something to do. Only the little mouse would think that Li Wen was really waiting for someone by squatting and doing nothing. When could he not give something to Li Wen? Why can't I bite? That person is the most annoying and disgusting. Of course, the little mouse knew that it was because of Taishu. Why should I be locked up? I didn't do anything wrong. Ning Shu held his chin and rolled his eyes. Breaking out of prison wasn't a crime. Ning Shu suddenly felt that it was better if the little mouse wasn't here. He had a sense of fear that was infected by the little mouse's IQ. It was said that birds of a feather flock together. If she stayed with the little mouse for a long time, her IQ might degenerate. Ning Shu said, "If you have nothing to do, you can split yourself and play with it." The little mouse didn't seem to have any intention of splitting. It split its clansmen and subordinates and went to find its own food. It always wanted to rely on her to feed it. It was so annoying. The little mouse shook its head. "No, I don't have enough energy now, and splitting is painful. I don't want to split. I think..." The little mouse's voice was a little low, and its mood was low. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. How could the heartless little mouse be depressed? "What do you think?" Ning Shu asked. The little mouse said, "I think Li Wen doesn't like my clansmen." "Why do you think so?" Ning Shu didn't think that Li Wen looked down on Li Wen's clansmen. They were strong, loyal, and executed orders very quickly. Li Wen was the emperor, so he probably liked them. Chapter 3573. Did he really think that the emperor liked to play mind games with his officials? Please. If he wanted to do something, his subordinates would carry it out meticulously, even at the expense of their own lives. Li Wen had probably never had such loyal subordinates in his life. However, the king of this race was quite good to Li Wen and was very satisfied with him. Little Mouse thought for a moment and said, "I feel that he doesn't like it." "Why do you feel that way?" Ning Shu was a little surprised. "He always stands on the bow deck and stares at my people." Ning Shu said, "I guess he's thinking, don't say anything. My country is gone." Little Mouse asked, "What do you mean?" Ning Shu shrugged. "Nothing. Continue biting." Little Mouse's face was so sad that its furry face was distorted. Even its eyes could not be seen. "My teeth hurt. I'm not biting anymore. That person is a pervert. He compressed the space wall like this. I can't bite it at all." An ordinary piece of paper was nothing, but 5 pieces of paper were a little hard. It was still relatively easy. However, 1,000 pieces of paper was definitely impossible to bite. Ning Shu was speechless. The chances of her going out were even lower. Did she really have to pay the fine? She didn't want to. She hadn't even warmed the things in her hands yet. Why should she give them to others? She would slowly endure and comprehend. Little Mouse sniffed like a dog and crawled to Ning Shu's side. It kept sniffing. "What energy do you have? Why do you smell so good?" Ning Shu said directly, "No." He was talking about the 2 energy given by Li Gua. Little Mouse sniffed hard. "Impossible. I clearly smell that you're hiding something good." Ning Shu said coldly, "No." Little Mouse anxiously circled Ning Shu and sniffed here and there. Ning Shu was annoyed and directly used the space wall to separate Little Mouse. Little Mouse opened its mouth and bit a hole quickly. Ning Shu compressed the spatial wall again. For a mouthful of food, the little mouse did not care about using its teeth directly. Bit with all its might. Ning Shu used the little mouse as a test subject to verify the results of his comprehension. The little mouse finally stopped before its teeth broke. It looked at Ning Shu with tears in its eyes. "You are heartless, cold, and unreasonable." Ning Shu, on the other hand, had learned the spatial wall compression, folding the spatial wall layer by layer. Yes, he understood the principle, but how was he going to break through the layers of space? It was like a normal person trying to pass through a wall. It was too difficult. He seemed to know how to repair the house, and now he wanted to tear it down. Therefore, violence was still needed. Could it be that he had to tear them down brick by brick? How long would that take? Ning Shu had no choice but to use the most stupid method, which was to find the location of a spatial node and step on it bit by bit. He didn't know if the grand uncle had set up a barrier. Back then, when he threw Zhengqing into the law of nothingness, he had used a barrier to lock him up. He hoped that she would not be treated like an official. Ning Shu was like pulling out a string, trying to make a hole bit by bit. This was a rather boring process. When would she be able to directly break through with violence? However, her comprehension of the law of space had improved. As time passed, there would be different insights. Take your time. There was no rush. The little mouse saw that Ning Shu was ignoring it and did not let it get close, so it started to sleep. It completely forgot that Li Wen was waiting for them. Ning Shu pulled out the last diamond and finally saw the hole. She was finally going to see the light of day again. She had finally succeeded in breaking out of prison. Ning Shu released his mental strength and carefully tested whether there was a barrier outside. If there was a barrier, the grand uncle would definitely feel it. He tested for a while. The grand uncle probably did not think that she could escape. Ning Shu woke the little mouse up. The little mouse opened its eyes in confusion and saw a hole. It cried out, "How did you do it?" "Of course I used my brain. You won't understand." Ning Shu climbed out of the dog hole, and the little mouse followed behind. Out of the space, Ning Shu immediately returned to the system space and exhaled. The air of freedom. The system asked, "Is this okay? You can come out, but you're still a sinner." Ning Shu spread his hands indifferently. He would wait until she got the energy body. Ning Shu held the rope and said, "Let's go find Li Wen." The little mouse hated the collar on its neck. He had tried many times to remove it, but he still couldn't remove it. Ning Shu and the little mouse came in front of the black hole and entered it. The whole city felt a little different from this time. They couldn't tell what was different, but they felt that these machines seemed to be smoother and colder, as if they had been repaired. Did Li Wen already control this city? Seeing them come in, these machines did not attack. Li Wen probably really controlled the center of the city. Without the obstruction of these machines, Ning Shu and the little mouse quickly arrived at the sword-shaped building in the center of the city. They went through the wall and went straight to the top floor. As soon as they walked in, they saw the energy body that looked like strange stones. The energy that was reflected was very sharp. However, the protective shield around the energy body was still there. Li Wen had not opened the protective shield yet. How could he call her over? Ning Shu pinched the little mouse's ear. "You didn't want to see Li Wen, so you tricked me to come here." The little mouse squeaked and struggled with its limbs. "No, I want to see Li Wen. Why would I bring you here? Are you crazy?" Ning Shu was speechless. He was speechless. It seemed to make sense. Therefore, he couldn't stay with the little mouse for too long. Otherwise, his IQ would become unstable. Li Wen came out. She was not wearing a white lab coat, but a thick protective suit. She was holding a strange weapon in her hand. Ning Shu let go of the little mouse's ear and asked Li Wen, "Brother, do you have a way to open the protective shield now?" "Yes, I can temporarily control this city for 2 hours. Opening this protective shield is still possible." Li Wen opened the glass-like passport. A huge, sharp force that seemed to be able to destroy everything in the world gushed out from the gap in the passport. It was like a monstrous wave coming head-on. It scraped Ning Shu's soul, causing him to feel a faint pain. Damn, this force is so strong? Ning Shu was a little unstable. Li Wen, who was close to the energy body, was like a sailboat that could capsize at any time in a storm. Li Wen had probably underestimated this power. Ning Shu moved toward Li Wen with difficulty. In this situation, he couldn't even stand steadily. How could he cut the energy body? Ning Shu went over to help Li Wen stabilize her body so that Li Wen could cut it. However, the closer he got to the energy body, the stronger the repulsive force he felt. It was like the repulsion of the negative pole of a magnet. It felt like he couldn't get close. Li Wen was speechless. Through the helmet of the protective shield, he could see Li Wen's embarrassed expression. He called her over, and the result was this. /BK. Chapter 3574. Ning Shu and Li Wen were now like travelers walking in a sandstorm. If they were not careful, they would be repelled by the energy body. Ning Shu was also a little embarrassed and asked loudly, "You didn't expect this beforehand?" There was something that Li Wen did not expect. Li Wen's voice was a little soft through the helmet and could only be vaguely heard. "I can only temporarily control the pivot for 2 hours. This is after I spent a lot of effort to deceive the pivot." Well, it turned out that Li Wen had not controlled this city yet. Ning Shu was good. How did those humans move the energy bodies here? What tools did they use? Therefore, the intelligence of humans was simply terrifying. Even Li Wen, an ancient person who had never come into contact with high-tech, could now write code and create viruses? Ning Shu was a little doubtful of his own intelligence. Now that Ning Shu and Li Wen were in a stalemate, there was no way for them to get close to the energy body and cut it. Could it be that they had come for nothing again? Of course, there were people who could cut it, but if others found out, would they still have a share? As long as the thing was still there, it could be cut. Perhaps when he was strong enough, he could cut it open. Ning Shu would not ask for external help. Besides, this city was not his. Li Wen would definitely not let others know about this place. Ning Shu took out the holy whip. She extended the holy whip and swung it at the energy body, trying to wrap around a corner. The whip wrapped around the energy body. Ning Shu pulled the whip and moved Li Wen's energy body. However, the repulsive force was too strong. There was no way to get close. Ning Shu felt that the repulsive force was so strong that it was going to tear his arm off. Little Mouse roared, "Get out of the way, let me do it." Ning Shu was focused on pulling the whip. When he suddenly heard the roar, his hand trembled and he let go of the whip. He was directly repelled by the energy body. Li Wen, who was being pulled by Ning Shu, naturally had the same fate. The two of them slammed into the wall. The force was so strong that the wall caved in. Ning Shu was a soul, so it didn't matter. However, Li Wen grunted. After all, he had a mortal body. He had cultivated and was unprepared, so it was very painful for him to be hit. Ning Shu looked at the little mouse speechlessly. This brat was getting bolder and bolder. The little mouse stared intently at the energy body, and then its body began to change. The little mouse's body began to melt. That's right, like ice cream, it turned into a puddle of water. It turned into a pool of silver water. From a distance, it looked like mercury. Furthermore, the volume of the silver water was getting larger and larger, and the water was swimming towards the energy body. Moreover, the silver water was very viscous, like asphalt. The place where the little mouse swam was clean, without a trace of water. The silver water seemed to be unaffected by the energy body's repulsive force and flowed over without any hindrance. Then, the silver water slowly flowed towards the energy body. After a while, half of the energy body was wrapped in the silver water. It felt like the surface of the energy body was coated with a thick layer of cream. The silver water wriggled, constantly nibbling and wrapping the energy body. At the same time, the repulsive force of the energy body was much smaller. Soon, the silver water wrapped the entire energy body, and the energy body that enveloped the entire hall disappeared. There was no repulsive force anymore. Without the energy body providing energy, the machinery in the entire city instantly stopped and fell to the ground. The little mouse saw that the two of them were in a daze and shouted angrily, "Hurry up, I can't wrap it for long." Oh, Ning Shu and Li Wen hurried over. Li Wen said to the little mouse, "I'm going to cut your body now." "It's okay, go ahead." The little mouse's voice was trembling. It seemed that it was really strenuous. It was very difficult for the little mouse to resist such a large amount of energy. Li Wen held a weapon, which was probably something like a laser. It directly penetrated the little mouse's body and began to cut the energy body. Li Wen cut a basketball-sized energy body for Ning Shu. Of course, the surface was uneven. I can't hold on anymore. The energy body's power penetrated the little mouse's body and directly bounced Ning Shu and Li Wen away. They slammed heavily into the wall. This time, the repulsive force was even stronger, and the dent in the wall was even deeper. Ning Shu felt pain, let alone Li Wen. She didn't know what material the wall was made of, but it didn't collapse. According to this strength, she and Li Wen should have been directly knocked out of the building. Ning Shu hugged the energy body. Although there was still a repulsive force, it was small and not that strong. The little mouse returned to its original appearance of a wretched mouse. It was also bounced out of the protective shield by the repulsive force of the energy body. With a bang, it slammed straight into the wall and was embedded in it. Ning Shu reached out and quickly put away the whip. Otherwise, the whip would be left inside the protective shield. Pull me out. The little mouse kicked its limbs and desperately tried to pull its head out. Ning Shu reached out and struggled to pull out the little mouse. It was inconvenient for Li Wen to wear a protective suit. Ning Shu felt that he couldn't pull out the little mouse's fur even if he rubbed it until it was bald. The little mouse's fur was all over the ground. Ning Shu wiped the fur on his palm and continued to pull out the carrot. Ning Shu gave up and said directly, "You should turn into water." Right, why didn't I think of that? The little mouse suddenly realized and turned into a small pool of silver water. It rolled down the wall and turned into a little mouse when it fell to the ground. It even bounced a few times. The two people and one mouse climbed out of the energy body's range along the wall and let out a long sigh. Li Wen took off her protective suit. She was sweating all over, and even her white coat was wet. Her hair looked as if it had been drenched in water. Her entire body was wet and seductive. Ning Shu placed the energy body in the mess in space and touched the little mouse's head. "Little mouse, you've finally grown up." The little mouse chuckled. Ning Shu said again, "When we go back, I'll reward you with a world's origin." Really? The little mouse couldn't believe it. It felt flattered that it was actually given a world's origin. The little mouse laughed. But then it realized that this was too embarrassing. How could a world's origin be like this? In the past, it wouldn't even look at a world's origin. What was a world's origin? In the past, the scraps it picked out from between its teeth were all energy bodies. Now, it was reduced to cheering for a world's origin. Its quality of life had deteriorated to this extent. The little mouse was dispirited. It couldn't be happy at all. Ning Shu asked, "Is that your original body?" A pool of silver asphalt. It could expand or shrink. It could be cut and reconnected. Even if its body was split, it might be able to get close to a little bit of silver water to revive. /BK. Chapter 3575. Now, Ning Shu believed that the little mouse could split its own people. In a way, the little mouse could be considered immortal. The little mouse looked at Li Wen carefully. Seeing that Li Wen had no expression, it quickly denied, "No, I'm not such a soft and disgusting thing." Ning Shu was speechless. Why did it belittle itself like that? Ning Shu looked at the little mouse and knew what to do. He asked Li Wen, "Brother, do you think the little mouse's body is disgusting?" "What's so disgusting about it?" Li Wen was a little strange. He had already accepted all kinds of strange things in the void and all kinds of weird worldviews. He didn't know that the little mouse's body was like this. He thought that the little mouse could turn into a human. The little mouse covered its mouth with its paws, trying to stop itself from laughing out loud, and hammered the floor with all its might. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Was it necessary? Li Wen was too weak. If Li Wen's psychological quality was not good enough and was not strong enough, he could turn a mouse into a human and punch it. Not to mention standing on the deck of the ship and looking at all kinds of people with no intelligence, strange tentacles, and evolving in the direction of the little mouse. Even if the little mouse twisted its body into a fried dough twist, Li Wen would accept it very calmly without blinking. After getting what he wanted, Ning Shu was in a very good mood. He smiled at Li Wen and said, Thank you, brother. But is this protective shield okay? Wouldn't it affect the city if the energy raged like this? When the time comes, it will return to normal. Li Wen wiped his sweat. I didn't feel it when this thing was in the protective shield, but I didn't expect the energy to be so strong after opening it. I miscalculated. Ning Shu said, good things come with setbacks. Today, the little mouse has done a good deed. Ning Shu was willing to give the little mouse such a large piece of energy and a world's origin. Li Wen just nodded. The little mouse was still in a daze as it fell into a blissful dizziness. Ning Shu looked at the time and said to Li Wen, brother, I'll leave first. After all, I broke out of prison. He didn't know if the grand uncle had found out. He should go back to jail as soon as possible. Li Wen raised his eyebrows, making them sharper. You've been locked up? Ning Shu waved his hand casually. Begging for food under other people's hands has to be controlled. Li Wen said, you can still live if you don't eat that much. Ning Shu. You're right. Ning Shu's little mouse asked, are you coming back with me or staying here? Little mouse said reservedly, I'll go back with you. You said you wanted to give. Considering that Li Wen was here, little mouse tried not to act like a hungry ghost. You can't control that energy body. You can't do it if I don't go back. Ning Shu couldn't help but roll his eyes. Okay, come back with me. In the end, he didn't expose little mouse's intention to perform its best in front of Li Wen. As soon as they returned to the system space, little mouse eagerly asked Ning Shu for the world's origin. Ning Shu said, wait until I'm out of prison. Little mouse was stunned. You still want to go back? What's wrong with you? Ning Shu flipped his hair. Of course, I've always been a person who follows the rules. I won't let anyone have something on me. Little mouse? Little mouse was a little confused. It didn't understand what Ning Shu was talking about, but it only knew one thing, and that was that it couldn't eat the world's origin for the time being. It might as well stay with Li Wen. It revealed its body in front of Li Wen, afraid that Li Wen would dislike it. Now it knew that Li Wen didn't dislike it. Even if it couldn't eat the world's origin, it didn't affect little mouse's happy mood at all. Its body was emitting pink bubbles, and Ning Shu felt disgusted. Little mouse was probably thinking too much. Li Wen would be calm even if she saw something scary. Ning Shu was about to put the god-beating whip into the meson space, but the surface of the meson space was full of cracks. It only needed a light push to break it. Ning Shu hurriedly took out the things inside. If the meson space broke, the things inside would disappear. He didn't know where they would end up in. Ning Shu took out all the items from the meson space. The meson space also exploded. It exploded into specks of spatial fragments and disappeared. As soon as the energy body was taken out, a vacuum formed around it. The things flew in all directions. In any case, they couldn't get close to the energy body. Suddenly, the system space became a mess. Ning Shu. The system space was still too small. Ning Shu wanted to expand the system space. Should he expand it himself or let the system expand it? Ning Shu originally wanted to put the god-beating whip and the energy body in the world of reincarnation. However, he thought about the energy body's power. If he put it in the world of reincarnation, it might affect the world of reincarnation. The energy body was something from the void. The world of reincarnation couldn't withstand it. Ning Shu felt that it was safer to put it in the system space. If he put it in the meson space, even the meson space wouldn't be able to withstand the energy body's power. He didn't know what kind of material the residents of the city used to make the protective shield. It could actually resist the energy body's power and let the energy radiate out, allowing the city's machinery to gain energy. It was really a god. Humans were a god species. Unfortunately, their bodies were too fragile. If their bodies were as strong as the creatures of the void and they had intelligence, the void would probably be like Earth and be taken over by humans. Ning Shu found a corner and put the energy body down. Then he put the god-beating whip beside it. However, the energy body's repulsive force repelled the god-beating whip. Anyway, there was nothing around the energy body except for the energy body. The god-beating whip vibrated slightly and flew toward the energy body. Then, it wrapped around the energy body tightly. But after a while, it was repelled by the energy body. The God-beating whip flew over again and stubbornly disturbed the energy body. This cycle repeated. Ning Shu looked at the God-beating whip that could automatically wrap around the energy body and showed a gratified smile. Maybe this battle of wits and courage could make the God-beating whip's consciousness and intelligence grow rapidly. Ning Shu looked at the energy body and the God-beating whip that were inseparable. Suddenly he realized one thing. Damn, I should go to jail. Ning Shu asked the little mouse to clean up the messy system space and not to pile things around the energy body. But the little mouse didn't seem to hear it. It was immersed in some unknown fantasy and made vulgar sounds. It was spicy to the ears. Ning Shu came to the time city full of hope. He hoped that the previous system space was still there. As for the dog hole she made, he would fix it after she went in. He had to turn over a new leaf. /BK. Chapter 3576. In order to avoid being caught by the Grand Uncle like last time, Ning Shu observed secretly when she arrived at the Time City to see if the Grand Uncle was there. As for the space that Ning Shu gnawed through, it was still there. The Grand Uncle didn't seem to be around. He was probably busy and wouldn't pay extra attention to her. Very good. Ning Shu went in through the dog hole and patched it up layer by layer. Entering this place again, Ning Shu's heart was as calm as still water. She didn't feel aggrieved at all. She could go out if she wanted to. She stayed here of her own volition. She wasn't forced to stay here. Her mentality was different. I can go out if I want to. I'm giving you face by staying here. Yes, her heart was very inflated. Ning Shu then began to comprehend the space law and learned to compress space. She could easily set up a solid space to bind people. Ning Shu wanted to crush a space with one hand. That would be really cool. Even if she couldn't crush it, the God-beating whip might have this function after absorbing the energy. Her own strength had to improve, but with the help of weapons, the effect might be 1 + 1 = 3. She was a human. A human's talent was to use tools. The cell was quiet. There was no sound at all. Ning Shu felt that she could go into seclusion to comprehend without being disturbed. She had to thank the Grand Uncle for providing her with such a safe and clean place. Ning Shu didn't feel like she was reflecting on her mistakes. Ning Shu recorded everything she couldn't figure out during the comprehension process. When she had time, she would ask the elders. The space law was really difficult to comprehend. It felt like a bottomless pit. She couldn't comprehend the place, but it was very powerful. If the space law was like this, then the time law, which was also a high-level law, would definitely be very powerful. The Cheongsam man's combat power was definitely not low. At least he had survived 2 wars. To be able to survive the battlefield without losing anything was not an easy task. Many law incarnations had been defeated in the 2 wars. The Cheongsam man was very low-key. Ning Shu didn't know how much combat power he had. It was not like they were enemies. They had not fought before, and they did not know the strength of the Cheongsam man. Space was a weapon of mass destruction, and time was even more so. Heroes and beauties couldn't hold on for long. Even the Sea of Law could not endure the time. After comprehending the laws of space, Ning Shu felt that he could try comprehending the laws of time in depth. Since Ning Shu had something to do, he didn't feel that time was hard to pass. The Grand Elder's voice echoed in the space. Get out. Ning Shu was surprised. We can get out so soon? In such a short time, it was as good as not going to jail. Since he could leave, Ning Shu wouldn't insist on staying here. The space disappeared, and Ning Shu's toes landed on the floor. He bought some drinks and drank them while heading to the consultation room. No matter what, she had to ask the silver-haired man why he had told Li Guo about her. Although Li Guo might not come to organize it now, Ning Shu was still unhappy. Ning Shu arrived at the consultation room, sat on a chair, and gulped down the drink. The drink was sweet, and it made Ning Shu's mood much better. She felt that she could prepare more candy and stuff it in her mouth. It was quite healing. She had worked so hard to become strong so that she could live a comfortable life. She could do whatever she wanted and not care about what others thought. As long as she didn't affect others, she could do whatever she wanted and be as willful as she wanted. The silver-haired man lifted the curtain and came out of the room. He sat down and asked calmly, "What do you want to ask?" Ning Shu saw that the silver-haired man acted as if nothing had happened. He didn't feel guilty at all. He had such a good mentality. Ning Shu put down the drink and looked at the silver-haired man. "Why did you tell Li Gua about my situation?" The silver-haired man frowned. "What did you say?" "Well, he was still pretending." Ning Shu said, "You know what you're doing." The silver-haired man said, "No, I don't remember." Ning Shu was speechless. What should people say about this? Ning Shu said, "You told Li Gua that I have the will of death on me." The silver-haired man said calmly, "I'm not that free. Besides, she can say whatever she wants. Other people in the organization know. You might as well ask others instead of questioning me." "I'm not that free." The silver-haired man asked, "Is there anything else?" Oh, the silver-haired man was so confident and didn't even care. He even had a hint of disdain and fuss. Ning Shu was speechless. "Then who said it?" The silver-haired man said directly, "I don't know. There are so many mission enforcers. Why should I care what they do?" There were billions of mission enforcers. The number was more than the number of creatures in a plane. The silver-haired man said, "You might as well ask yourself. You don't even know who said it. Why would I know if you came to ask me?" The silver-haired man almost said, "What enemies do you have that you don't know?" He had come to question the silver-haired man, but now he was being mocked by the silver-haired man. For some reason, he felt that the silver-haired man didn't like him. This was to be expected. To ask such a question, plus the heart, Ning Shu's face was cold and he didn't say anything. To be honest, he didn't know how many mission enforcers there were. However, the one who knew about the will of death was definitely a big shot. As for who had leaked it, Ning Shu didn't think it was that important. If the news spread, it might make others wary. Don't mess with me for no reason. Since the silver-haired man was in a bad mood, Ning Shu naturally wouldn't stay to be mocked by the silver-haired man. It couldn't be said that he was being sarcastic, but there was a faintly discernible impatience in it. The silver-haired man said, 500,000 merit points. Ning Shu? He still had to pay? The silver-haired man said, "You're here to ask. Naturally, you have to pay." The silver-haired man's tone was cold. He still looked like an aristocrat in the middle world. Ning Shu paid him 500,000 merit points and didn't bother to say anything else. Summoning the silver-haired man was like summoning a divine dragon. There was definitely a price to pay to summon him. Ning Shu left the consultation room and went to buy a bag of candies with various flavors. He threw one into his mouth and then went to the auction house to buy the world's origin for the little mouse. Since he had promised to give it a world's origin, he had to give it. This time, he had obtained the energy body. Next time, he would walk the little mouse to find other treasures. He had to give the mouse a kind of awareness. That was, he could get delicious food if he contributed. If he wanted to eat delicious food, he had to work hard. Compared to a world's origin, the energy body was still more valuable. Chapter 3577. This time, Ning Shu bought 5 world origins from Si Tian. In Si Tian's words, he took away all of Si Tian's inventory. Ning Shu took the 5 world origins and returned to the system space. He waved them in front of Little Mouse. Little Mouse saw the 5 world origins and immediately opened its eyes wide. It covered its chest and looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. "You gave me 5? When did this woman become so nice? Did she find her conscience? That's impossible. She said she would give 1 and she gave 5. Little Mouse was very happy. It felt that a lot of good things had happened recently. It was very happy. Ning Shu stretched out his index finger and waved it. "Not 5 but 1? Little Mouse looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. "Then why did you buy 5? Ning Shu casually took out a wood attribute world origin and threw it to Little Mouse. "What does you eating 1 have to do with me buying 5? Little Mouse looked at the world origin and then looked at the world origin in Ning Shu's hand. It instantly cried. If Ning Shu only had 1 world origin and gave 1 to Little Mouse wouldn't be so upset. But it had 5 in its hand and gave 1 to Little Mouse. Little Mouse was very upset. Ning Shu said, I said I will give you one, so I will give you one. Do you want to eat the others? Little Mouse hurriedly nodded. It's not impossible. I will give you one when I find a treasure, especially treasures like energy bodies. Little Mouse laughed coldly. If it found an energy body, it wouldn't care about the world origin. If it found an energy body, it would eat until it was full. This time, you found an energy body, so I will give you one. Ning Shu flicked his hair and said, I always keep my words. If I say I will give you one, I will definitely not give you two. The little mouse was dumbfounded. He was so stingy. What was there to boast about? He even kept his word. Seeing that Ning Shu had put away the world's origin, the little mouse felt as if a cat was scratching its heart. His eyes were filled with the world origins. Little Mouse coughed and said, If you don't want to give me the world origin, give me some leaves from the world tree. This was something it could reluctantly accept. Ning Shu mercilessly rejected the little mouse. He also wanted the leaves of the world tree. Each leaf could become a world in the future, a vast world with many living creatures. It was eaten by the little mouse. Of course, Ning Shu would not give it to him. Little Mouse was so angry that he stomped his feet. Why are you so stingy? Besides, since it's a tree's leaves, it's impossible for all of them to succeed. They'll fall eventually. Ning Shu said matter-of-factly, Just wait. When a leaf really falls, I'll give it to you. Ning Shu would not pluck the leaves that grew on the world tree. But if a leaf fell, he would give it to the little mouse to deal with. Little Mouse looked at Ning Shu. Why are you so stubborn? Even if a leaf falls, it'll grow back after you pluck it. What's wrong with giving me some leaves? Stubborn. There was something wrong with his IQ. Ning Shu said, I'm happy to. Little Mouse was so angry. He bit the wood world's origin fiercely. His cheeks puffed up and his black bean-sized eyes were about to cry. He did not even want to eat one more world origin. He was not even willing to give him a leaf. What was the point of staying with such a person? Little Mouse snorted and stuffed the world origin into his mouth. He wanted to run away from home like a wrong child. Ning Shu looked at Little Mouse. Where are you going? Why do you care where I'm going? Little Mouse ran away from home. Ning Shu did not care where Little Mouse went at all. At most, he would go to find Li Wen. Did she really think that she would give in just because he made a fuss? She was thinking too much. He would not even spoil his own child, let alone other people. If she gave in this time, she would play the same trick again. Ning Shu would not give her such a chance at all. Little Mouse's treasure hunting ability was not very important to Ning Shu. When he was strong enough, he could go to the void to look for it. It could only be said that Little Mouse made things more convenient for him. Little Mouse. Little Mouse looked at the cold-hearted and unreasonable Ning Shu. He stomped his feet, snorted, and turned to leave. I'm not coming back anymore. Ning Shu waved his hand. Have a safe trip. This time, Little Mouse had to leave even if she did not want to. The chat system dinged. Ning Shu opened it and saw that it was sent by the main system. It said that she was temporarily sent to Area D to deal with the Star Stone. Ning Shu now understood why she was released. It was because she was needed to take over. Sometimes it felt good. There were many times when she was needed. Even if she was locked up, she had to be released. Although she was the one who was being squeezed, she was still very happy to make the Taishu feel uncomfortable. She was asked to face the wall and now she was released. Not bad, not bad. She was asked to take over again. She remembered that she took over last time. This time, the person in charge was making a fuss again? Maybe he was busy and temporarily asked someone to take over. So be it. It did not matter. After dealing with the Star Stone this time, Ning Shu was going to do a mission. He had been wandering around for a long time. Ning Shu did not go immediately. Who didn't have a temper? Looking at the God-beating whip and the energy body, when the God-beating whip completely absorbed the energy, it might be able to develop consciousness. If it still didn't work, he would ask Li Wen for more. The energy body was very big. He would buy it from Li Wen. Ning Shu was very much looking forward to the consciousness of the God-beating whip. Ning Shu thought about it and said to Dan Qing, Dan Qing, I want to tell you something. Dan Qing, go ahead. Don't tell the organization that I have this energy body. Ning Shu did not know if the organization needed this kind of energy body. What the organization needed was the kind of gentle energy that could be born and nurtured. Ning Shu did not know if this kind of energy organization needed it, but it was a big lump. It really made people jealous. Ning Shu also knew that Dan Qing was a sandwich biscuit. It was not good to be sandwiched between both sides. She took out a kidney-strengthening fruit and said, Did you finish the kidney-strengthening fruit I gave you last time? Dan Qing. I finished it. This was a blatant bribe. She was speechless. Ning Shu, then take it and eat it. When Zhu Jun collects extra soul fluid next time, he will give you some. Since she wanted to pull Dan Qing over, she had to give her some benefits. When she had a lot of meat, she would give Dan Qing some meat. When she had less meat, she would give Dan Qing some meat soup. Otherwise, no one would be able to eat this pot. Since she was in the organization, she had to be controlled. If there were no benefits, why should she follow you? People did not need to eat, drink, and poop. Even if they did not eat, drink, or poop, they had to be strong. Dan Qing said, I did not tell the organization about this. Ning Shu smiled. Of course I know. Dan Qing accepted the kidney-strengthening fruit. She also knew that it was valuable. Previously, one was auctioned for 80 million merit points. Recently, she sold one for 50 million merit points. Chapter 3578. Dan Qing knew that he couldn't afford such an expensive thing, so he had no choice but to bow his head to the evil forces. What could he do? He was also helpless. In short, he was now tied to Ning Shu. He didn't know what the organization wanted to do, but now that Ning Shu was in trouble, he didn't know if the organization would let him go. Fortunately, the two of them didn't have a soul bond, and this mission enforcer of his seemed to be very resistant to this thing. She had mentioned it once before, but never mentioned it again. But it could also be that she had forgotten. The system hoped to be strong enough to get rid of its identity as a system and become a person that existed only. In fact, being a person of the system was more difficult than being a mission enforcer. He had to help a mission enforcer, but the reward was not as much as the mission enforcer. And he didn't even remember who he was in his previous life. Ning Shu bribed Dan Qing, so he didn't have to worry about the safety of the energy body in the system space. And if there were any problems, Dan Qing would definitely inform her. Now, all the soul power she obtained from doing missions belonged to her. Originally, the system wanted to take 10% of it, but now Dan Qing couldn't take it. Since he could only take 10% from the organization, Ning Shu planned to make up for it in other ways. When he had extra soul fluid in the future, he could give some. So far, Dan Qing hadn't done anything harmful to her. They didn't want to be friends, but they could become a community of interests. When she suffered losses, Dan Qing's interests would also suffer. Then Dan Qing would protect her for his own interests. It was impossible to make cows work and not eat grass. Dan Qing felt that he had fallen. Morning. Ning Shu went to District D according to the address given by the system. It was just a simple matter to deal with the Star Stone. When they arrived, Ning Shu saw a group of people gathered together, whispering to each other. She didn't know what they were talking about. Ning Shu walked over and asked, What are you guys talking about? We're talking about when the organization will send people over. This place can't hold on any longer. Save the child. No one looked at Ning Shu and said directly. With the addition of a beautiful little girl, everyone stared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, Where is the child? I'm here to save the child. Everyone, are you someone sent by the organization? Someone asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Great, they're finally here. These people didn't question Ning Shu's ability. They all let out a sigh of relief and asked Ning Shu to quickly deal with the star stones. Ning Shu's expression was wooden. He suddenly felt that the people of District D were very simple. Ning Shu didn't say much and began his work. The others also began to pick up the fragments. He immediately went into work mode. This situation was a little different from working in other places. Seeing Ning Shu staring at everyone, A big shot asked, "Do you have any questions?" Ning Shu shook his head. "No, where's the person in charge?" "We don't have a person in charge here. It's always been Master who sends people here." "Oh," Ning Shu said. No wonder these people were so calm. They weren't even curious about her. If no one was in charge of handling the star rocks, it would be a bit of a loss. Since there was no one in charge of District D, why didn't they merge it with other districts to make it easier to manage? But what did this have to do with her? She just felt that there were a lot of people in this organization. One mission taker from each plane was also a lot of people. But every time it was time to do something, why did it feel like there was no one? To be precise, they needed people with power to do it. What they lacked was powerful people. Ning Shu asked the question in his heart, "Why don't you merge?" If they merged, they wouldn't have to wait for the organization to send people over every day. It felt like this District D was a poor country waiting for international help. Merging means that there will be more planes to manage and more things to do. Even the person in charge isn't willing to merge. They also wanted to merge, but no one was willing to take over. They weren't willing to take over such a mess. Ning Shu replied with an "oh," and didn't say anything else. Ning Shu was afraid that the organization would go crazy and make her the person in charge of District D. After all, she had to go around blindly now and didn't have that much time to deal with these things. It was okay to help occasionally, but Ning Shu didn't want to waste her time on it. She had nothing to do and wanted to go for a stroll in the void. Ning Shu slowly dealt with the star stones and occasionally collected some scraps. It wouldn't affect the bonding of the planes. Although she didn't need star stones now, she needed the device to collect soul fluid in the world of reincarnation. Although that device didn't seem to collect any soul fluid, it would be a waste not to take it. These star stones would be wasted. These big bosses who picked up fragments were powerful people. They were also very active when picking up fragments and as fast as possible. This way, they could deal with more broken planes. Now someone came to deal with the star stones. Who knew when the next person would come? She felt stifled. This situation was different from what Ning Shu saw in District A. The big bosses in District A were all lazy. The people here were very intuitive. It was probably because they had no leader, but if the plane collapsed too much, it would be their responsibility. They had no choice but to tremble and huddle together. The big boss closest to Ning Shu asked, "Who among you has comprehended the rules? If you have, it will be easier to deal with the star stones." It was also a troublesome thing to be without a leader. "I don't know. Everyone is trying their best to comprehend." Ning Shu also sighed. If the rules could be comprehended with effort, Ning Shu felt that she had endless energy. She didn't seem to comprehend many rules. There were thousands of rules. It was not easy to comprehend one. "Why don't you be the person in charge of District D?" After this person finished speaking, his eyes lit up like light bulbs. He looked at Ning Shu expectantly. The smile on Ning Shu's face froze. The smile on Ning Shu's face gradually disappeared. The smile on Ning Shu's face disappeared. Ning Shu lowered his head and dealt with the star stones like a quail. "Well, I'm not strong enough. Thank you for your kindness. It doesn't matter if you are strong or not, as long as you can deal with the star stones." "Ning Shu, thank you for your kindness, but I still have to refuse." Ning Shu sped up the process of dealing with the star stones, hoping to leave this place as soon as possible. Ning Shu could already feel the malice from the organization. She bid farewell. She couldn't let District D fall into her hands. Otherwise, she wouldn't be free. Then, the group of people ignored Ning Shu and gathered together again, whispering to each other and looking at Ning Shu. As they talked, perverted smiles appeared on their faces. Even if Ning Shu was a pig, she knew that these people were talking about her and that they had bad intentions. Ning Shu hurriedly thought of a way to decline. If the organization really wanted her to take over District D, how to refuse gracefully and firmly. Chapter 3579. Why did she feel like she had fallen into a wolf's den when she came to deal with the star rocks? Please. No matter how these people tried to get close to Ning Shu and looked at Ning Shu with loving and gentle eyes, Ning Shu lowered her head and dealt with the star rocks. "All of you bad people, Go away. Ning Shu kept a low profile and dealt with the star rocks quietly. The others saw that Ning Shu did not speak and was fully focused on dealing with the star rocks, and were afraid of disturbing her. Thus, they did not speak to Ning Shu. When the time came for the collective book organization, they would let this young lady be their person in charge. Ning Shu felt a chill down her spine, and felt relieved. She would never come to Area D again, it was too dangerous, and she might lose her freedom. It was fine if she did not have this responsibility, but since she had taken on this responsibility, it was not right to not be responsible. The best way was to not take on this responsibility. Ning Shu felt that she was just a small city lord of Water City, but she had to take on the responsibility of the entire Area D. Ning Shu smiled. She felt that she would not be able to live for long. After dealing with the star rocks for who knew how long, she had been in Area D. It was much easier to destroy new life. She reckoned that the number of new planes could not keep up with the number of destroyed planes. Birth was smaller than death and could not maintain balance. This was a huge problem. The problem of the Sea of Laws was becoming more and more obvious. Ning Shu quickly sent a message to the main system, asking him to send someone over. She wanted to leave. It was so scary here. Ning Shu had been in the organization for so long, and this was the first time she felt that there was such a warm and welcoming place. As expected, she was still too young. This time, it took a long time to deal with all the collapsed planes in the area, and the people sent by the main system had not arrived yet. Since it was done, Ning Shu felt that she could leave. If she did not leave, these people would surround her again. Ning Shu said to them, "It's done, I'll leave first." Don't you want to think about it? Becoming the person in charge will give you resources. Don't miss it, you can become stronger with the resources. It wasn't easy for these big shots either. In order to tempt Ning Shu, they used all kinds of temptations. Ning Shu waved her hand. She did not want to fight like a chicken over a few resources. Her goal was already the Void Land. Instead of fighting for resources with so many people in charge, he might as well go to the void and look for good stuff. Ning Shu hurriedly returned to the system space and began to clean up the messy system space. Previously, he had asked Little Mouse to clean up, but the little mouse had not done so and had even run away from home in the end. The chat system rang. Ning Shu had a premonition that it was definitely sent by the main system. Definitely. Ning Shu did not open the chat system immediately. Instead, he tidied up the system space before opening it. As expected, it was a message from the main system. The gist of the message was that the people of Area D had decided to elect Ning Shu as the person in charge. Then, Ning Shu became the person in charge. Ning Shu only had one word for this: get lost. Ning Shu was very touched. Then, he firmly rejected the position of person in charge and directly said that he would not be the person in charge. The main system said that this was the responsibility given to Ning Shu by the people. Ning Shu snorted. That person did not ask for her permission. So what if you have more people? You have more people so you can make people do things they don't want to do? It sounded good. It was the will of the people. Ning Shu somehow felt that it was moral coercion. Ning Shu directly said, "Even if you want me to be the person in charge, I won't do it. If you force me to do it, I won't care. I don't agree with this responsibility from the bottom of my heart." His sister was very busy. Perhaps Ning Shu's attitude was too firm. The main system was silent for a while and said that there were a lot of resources. Ning Shu still did not want to. With this responsibility, he might be bound to this responsibility forever. He would do what he usually did and work overtime. However, if he wanted to be the person in charge for a long time, Ning Shu would do it. Especially Ning Shu, who did not know how long he could live. If he did not seek death, he could live for a long time. Then wouldn't he have to do it until his law C collapsed and completely collapsed? Only then would he be able to remove this responsibility. This was too scary. No way, no way. This was the opposite of her free life. No matter how many things there were, they could not tempt Ning Shu. She could live for too long. She would do what she needed to do. She liked to do odd jobs and did not like to be tied to a position. The main system asked Ning Shu to consider. Ning Shu directly said that there was no need to consider. He would not do it. Even if he forced her to do it, she would not care about it. After closing the chat system, Ning Shu felt that it was time to do missions. Before doing missions, he went to find Zhu Jun to see if there was any extra soul fluid. If there was enough soul fluid, Ning Shu felt that he could do fewer missions in the future. He could go to the void to find treasures. When Ning Shu came to the world of reincarnation, he suddenly thought of something. It had been a long time since he went to see the little girl who was thrown to the earthworm. According to the flow of time in the Nine Palace Mountain, he was afraid that she would have grown up by now. He should go and take a look. Zhu Jun saw that Ning Shu was asking for soul fluid not long ago and was speechless. He said, "Didn't you just ask for it? Did I pass?" Ning Shu was at a loss. Why couldn't she remember? Oh, he remembered. He wanted to fuse with the lightning law imprint and asked Zhu Jun for it. Ning Shu stiffly changed the topic. "Is the house fixed?" "It's fixed. Now we are preparing to build houses in every world of reincarnation with souls." Ning Shu nodded and said, "Good job." Zhu Jun silently looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu dryly coughed and asked, "Is there any more merit?" She felt that she was a scum who only gave money. No, she was not a scum. After all, she did not even have a scum who gave her money. She was the most pitiful, okay? Zhu Jun said, "Yes." Ning Shu said, "Oh." Then there was nothing he could do. This was very awkward. Zhu Jun said that he was busy. Ning Shu immediately said, "Go ahead." Ning Shu hurriedly entered the second level of the Nine Palace Mountain. When he arrived in front of the wooden house, he smelled a strong herbal smell. Who was injured? A pretty girl was fanning the stove with a fan. White smoke was coming out of a small medicine pot. Ning Shu scanned with his spiritual energy and found a man lying in the house. His body was covered in wounds. His face was pale and his lips were bloodless. He looked like a dead person. He was quite good-looking. Among humans, he was considered good-looking. If he was ugly, the girl would probably hesitate for a while to save him. Damn, the world was so cruel. Ning Shu felt that this scene was somewhat familiar. Why was it a man? Why not a girl? Oh, probably a girl would not run deep into the mountains or forests. Ning Shu did not care about the man. However, the earthworm was not in the house. Its breath was very weak. It probably had not been at home for a while. Ning Shu was a bit speechless. When the earthworm came back, the girl might have run away with someone. Then he would have to search the whole world for her. /BK. Chapter 3580. Where did the earthworm go? However, there was one thing that caught Ning Shu's attention. There was a fluctuation of spiritual energy on the little girl's body, which meant that this child was cultivating. Was this taught by the earthworm? Then where did the secret cultivation book come from? Ning Shu suspected that the earthworm had sneaked into a human sect and stolen it. Looking at the spiritual energy fluctuation on the little girl's body, it was not very strong. Ning Shu appeared behind her, and the little girl fanned herself casually. There was a faint fragrance unique to a young girl on her body, especially when she was cultivating, which made people like her even more. Her whole body was refreshed. 16 years old was really a beautiful and young age. She was fresh and full of life. Ning Shu said, "Where's the earthworm?" The little girl was startled and jumped up, almost kicking over the stove next to her, and looked at Ning Shu vigilantly. She did not notice when someone came here. "Ah, it's you." The little girl seemed to have a little impression of Ning Shu, but this impression was a little faint. It was something that happened when she was a child. For Ning Shu, it was not a long time, but for the little girl, it was very long, so long that her memory was a little blurry. Who could accurately remember things that happened when they were 5 or 6 years old? Uncle went to the mountain to look for medicine. The little girl breathed a sigh of relief and said to Ning Shu, and quickly went into the room to pour tea for Ning Shu. Ning Shu sat down, took the tea, and asked, "What's the matter with the person in the room?" The little girl took a small stool and sat down, and then began to fan herself. While fanning herself, she said, "He came to the mountain to look for spirit beasts, but there was an accident on the way, so I picked him up and brought him back. From his clothes, he looks a bit like a disciple of a sect." Ning Shu took a sip of tea and put down the teacup. "Really? I don't know. The little girl shook her head and said honestly. Living in the mountain, she was not very clear about the outside world. She looked a little longing, but her uncle said that the two-legged monsters were vicious, ugly, despicable and cunning, and she would be hurt by bad people if she went out. Even so, he couldn't resist his yearning for the outside world. The little girl had dragged the injured man back because she wanted him to tell her about the fun things outside after he recovered. When the earthworm came back, it was dragging a few stalks of grass with its tail. The earthworm was now as big as a snake, but its body was still fleshy, just like an earthworm. Turning into an earthworm that was several sizes bigger, this feeling was even more disgusting. Thinking about an earthworm as thick as an arm, that's really disgusting. When the earthworm saw Ning Shu, he rolled his eyes. What are you doing here? You haven't been here for so many years. What are you doing here? Ning Shu said indifferently, Miss seems to have grown up. Earthworm's muscles tightened as he looked at Ning Shu. What do you mean? You didn't raise her when she was young, and now you want her to get married? In the earthworm's mind, it seemed that all women of the two-legged monsters had to get married and have children in order to reproduce. Ning Shu hadn't appeared for a long time. Now that he appeared, he said that the child had grown up. How could Earthworm not be angry? The little girl at the side looked at her uncle and auntie in confusion. What marriage? Ning Shu felt that the earthworm was the real thick-skinned one. It was better to guard against the man lying on the bed than to guard against her. After all, he was of the opposite sex and they lived together day and night. Moreover, the little girl had never come into contact with other members of the opposite sex. As for the earthworm, could it be called the opposite sex? After living together day and night, Ning Shu felt that it was impossible for them to not have feelings for each other. Moreover, Ning Shu saw that the man lying on the bed had red luck on him. People with such luck usually had fortuitous encounters. With great luck, they would encounter all kinds of treasures and, of course, meet all kinds of beautiful women. Beautiful women with beautiful bones and beautiful skin were also treasures. Ning Shu didn't want to pay attention to the earthworm and asked, "What's wrong with the man in the room? Are you blind?" Ning Shu chuckled. The earthworm's skin was so tight now. He said, "I've seen Liren." The earthworm immediately stuck out its tongue like the pug and asked, "Is Liren all right?" Ning Shu glanced at him and didn't speak. The earthworm ran around Ning Shu's feet and asked, "Did something happen to Liren?" "He's fine. He's just looking for trouble for me." "Oh, that's good." The earthworm breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that Liren was fine. As for what he was looking for, the earthworm didn't care. The earthworm gave the medicine to the little girl, saying that it was medicine with spiritual energy and was good for cultivators' injuries. The little girl nodded and washed the medicine and put the rice in the medicine pot. The earthworm looked at Ning Shu sitting on the bamboo chair and drinking tea leisurely and asked, "Why aren't you leaving?" Ning Shu said, "I'm on vacation recently. I'm going to stay here for a while and rest." The earthworm immediately said, "There are so many places. Why do you have to stay here?" "Because the scenery here is beautiful and the air is fresh. It's suitable for a vacation." Ning Shu felt that it was necessary to take the little girl out to see the world. Otherwise, she would be bewitched by any man. When she saw more, she wouldn't be so short-sighted. The earthworm was very unhappy, but it couldn't say anything. "There's no place for you to live here." "It doesn't matter. I can sleep on the hanging rope like little dragon maiden." It didn't matter whether she slept or not. Ning Shu asked, "Little girl, you've started cultivating, right? Where did you get the secret book?" As Ning Shu had expected, it was really the earthworm who had sneaked into the human sect and stolen it. Moreover, it had secretly observed for a long time and knew which book was stolen by the disciples of the human sect who were annoyed by their cultivation. Then, it had secretly dug a hole and dragged it back. Ning Shu stretched out his hand. "Let me see that secret book. Maybe the one you dragged out is the lowest level secret book. I see that the little girl's spiritual energy fluctuations are not strong. Maybe it's because of the secret book." The little girl walked into the room and took out a secret book from the box. Ning Shu looked at the secret book and said to the little girl, "A new shocking world has begun. You don't need to cultivate this secret book. But the earthworm was unhappy. It took him a long time to get it. She said she shouldn't cultivate it. The most important thing was that she had cultivated it for many years. Now she had to start from scratch. Ning Shu looked at her from the corner of his eyes. It's such a clear secret book. If the little girl goes out in the future, she will be recognized. Do you think those sects will be easy to talk to? The secret book of her sect was leaked. This matter could be big or small. From today onwards, you will cultivate with me, Ning Shu said to her. The little girl looked at the earthworm. The earthworm said dryly and reluctantly, cultivate with her. This person's character is not good, but her strength is still good. Character is not good? The little girl nodded to Ning Shu. Also, call her sister, Ning Shu said seriously. The earthworm rolled his eyes. What a shameless two-legged monster. By the way, what's the little girl's name? He couldn't call her little girl. The child had entered puberty and needed to be taught. Chapter 3581. After all, this girl crawled out from her stomach. Although she wasn't related to her by blood, this was fate. Moreover, she had accepted this girl's mother's gift, so she still had to do something. It was also a good time for her to relax. So many years had passed, so why was there a need to rush? If she finished everything now, wouldn't the rest of her life be too boring? Then, it didn't seem appropriate to call her sister. Ning Shu thought for a moment and said, you should call me aunt. The little girl was stunned for a moment and nodded. The other party was an elder, so naturally, she would do whatever she said. Yao Nyang, her name is Yao Nyang. Ning Shu felt like he had asked for her name before, so he said to the earthworm, I don't think it was this name last time. As for the name, Ning Shu couldn't remember. The earthworm looked at Ning Shu with disdain. The name from before wasn't nice, so I went out for a walk to give the child a nice name. Alright, as a scumbag mother who didn't do anything and didn't take responsibility, Ning Shu had no right to question the earthworm. The earthworm threw out a sentence, at that time, where were you? Ning Shu became a dud. Yao Nyang, don't boil the medicine anymore. I'll go treat him. After he leaves, we'll start cultivating in seclusion, Ning Shu said to Yao Nyang. When you're successful in your cultivation, I'll take you to the pugilistic world. Yao Nyang revealed a pure and happy smile. Ning Shu walked into the room and glanced at the man on the bed. He took out a few spirit stones and set up a spirit gathering formation to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy. Since he was a cultivator, his body would naturally absorb the surrounding spiritual energy. Yao Nyang watched curiously from the side. The secret manual that this man cultivated was a little special. Even when he was unconscious, his body was absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy, and his complexion was improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yao Nyang's expression was very surprised. Ning Shu said, Uncle said that the people who cultivate outside can fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. They're very powerful. Your uncle is right. If you don't have absolute strength to back you up, you mustn't wander about recklessly, understand? Ning Shu hurriedly instilled in Yao Nyang that the world was a dangerous place. When Hanshin woke up, he found that there were two women beside the bed. One of them had fair skin and was wearing makeup between her eyebrows. She was wearing clothes that revealed her shoulders and waist. He had never seen a woman wearing clothes like this. He looked down at her with an indifferent gaze. As for the girl beside him, she exuded a youthful aura. She was wearing a long dress, and her eyes were incomparably pure and filled with curiosity. Two beautiful women. His lips were dry and cracked, and he couldn't help but stick out his tongue to lick them. With a hoarse and deep voice, he said, Can you give me some water? He could feel the rich spirit qi in the surroundings and was a little shocked. What a rich spirit qi! In the sect, only the inner disciples could cultivate in a place with such dense spirit qi. As he absorbed the spiritual energy, wisps of spiritual energy entered his body, nourishing his dry body. All right. Yao Nyang immediately went to pour some water for Hanshin. Hanshin struggled to sit up. With this cold woman beside him looking at him, he couldn't really let this little girl feed him. Are you the ones who saved me? Thank you for saving my life. Ning Shu said indifferently, It's okay. You'll taste better after you recover. Han Chen was stunned. What did this mean? She wanted to eat him? The wounds on Han Chen's body gradually healed, revealing his original appearance. He was very handsome, and there was a strand of hair hanging down from his forehead, making him look even more unrestrained. Even Yao Nyang couldn't help but look at Ning Shu in surprise. Could it be that Auntie was a divine beast like Uncle? In any case, Uncle was a divine beast. However, Uncle always looked down on humans as two-legged monsters, but he had never said that he would eat humans. This Auntie actually wanted to eat humans. Ning Shu revealed a warm smile. I'm just joking. Why would I eat humans? Yao Nyang, it's time for lunch. What do you want to eat? The earthworm crawled in and spoke in human language. Han Chen, who was lying on the bed, bulged his eyes. A blood-red snake that looked like a big earthworm spoke. It was said that spirit beasts that gained intelligence were similar to humans. Yo, two-legged monster, you're awake? The earthworm wriggled its body and crawled to the side of the bed. To be honest, Han Chen had never seen such a disgusting spirit beast. However, seeing that the other two women were calm, he naturally couldn't show any disgust. I'm awake. Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. Han Chen felt that these three were all spirit beasts. Two spirit beasts in human form. Although one of them hadn't taken human form yet, it spoke very smoothly. It was obvious that it had already gained intelligence. It's nothing. Yao Nyang brought you back. Although I hate two-legged monsters, but you talk too much. Go and cook. Ning Shu interrupted the earthworm. Han Chen saw the wriggling earthworm leave angrily. It seemed that the strongest one here was this woman. To be honest, the way she was dressed, her shoulders were exposed, and her two thin arms were exposed. Her thin shoulders and lines made people not dare to look at her too much. Even the women in brothels didn't dare to dress like this. However, she didn't have the gaudy taste of brothels at all. Instead, it made people not dare to have any blasphemous thoughts. When did this forest have such a powerful spirit beast? Han Chen felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Han Chen groaned and lay down, pretending to be uncomfortable to avoid the two women's gazes. Oh my God, don't look at me like that. She had great charm and innocence. In the sect, there were very few beauties like her. In the sect, the girls who had a little bit of talent all had eyes on their heads. Moreover, she was a spirit beast. She was full of mystery. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, what kind of eyes are you looking at them with? Are you imagining the scene of a mother and daughter pair flying together? Ning Shu had met many stallions. Sisters of Huang and Envying, he took in both mother and daughter. Ning Shu wanted to gouge out this bitch's eyeballs. Han Chen blinked and met her gaze. He felt pain in his eyes, as if he was going to go blind. Thus, Han Chen didn't dare to look anymore and quickly closed his eyes. Heh, how wretched. He didn't feel anything when he looked at her openly, but when he looked at her like this, his eyes immediately drifted away. It was really indescribable wretchedness. Do you think you're a shy little girl? Yao Nyang, follow me. Ning Shu prepared to teach Yao Nyang a peerless martial art. This peerless martial art didn't care about one's foundation, and the upper limit was very high. Although the name was a little lame, it was useful. When would he give this peerless martial art a resounding name? Moreover, it would be a world-shaking name that would resound through the void. He had to think about this name carefully. Ning Shu made Yao Nyang sit cross-legged and then told her the cultivation method of the peerless martial art. Then, he set up a spirit-gathering formation around her and embedded spirit stones around her. Sorry, with so many spirit stones, one could be willful. Chapter 3583. There was no spiritual energy fluctuation at all. She looked like an ordinary person, but from her behavior, she didn't seem like an ordinary person. Please. An ordinary person wouldn't be so relaxed in the depths of the mountains. Without absolute strength, they wouldn't be so calm. Ever since he entered the mountains, he had been trembling with fear. His nerves were tense, afraid that an accident would happen, or that he would encounter an undefeatable spirit beast. The most frightening thing was her eyes. When she looked at him, he felt as if he had been seen through, and all the secrets in his heart had been cut open. He didn't dare to look at her directly. Ning Shu only drank a little soup and didn't eat anything else. The food made by earthworms was only edible. As for the taste, it was secondary. It wasn't as delicious as the heart. On the path of adulthood, earthworms were inferior to the heart. You should learn more about cooking, Ning Shu said. Without waiting for the earthworms to explode, he returned to the system space and opened the exchange mall. He saw that there was a marrow cleansing pill. There was no need for it to be so complicated, with pill formulas and various ingredients. It could be done with some merit points. There was no need to look for medicinal herbs all over the world. After exchanging for a fasting pill, Ning Shu returned. Yao Nyang was washing the dishes, and Han Chen was also helping. Yao Nyang, come here. Ning Shu leaned against the door and waved at Yao Nyang. Han Chen felt that this woman was really dressed like this and leaned against the wall or the door as if she didn't have any bones. It made his heart itch. Little girls had their own charms, but old people had their own charms. Them. Yao Nyang dried her hands and followed Ning Shu into the room. Ning Shu set up a barrier and took out the fasting pill. Eat it. It will hurt a little. You have to be mentally prepared. Yao Nyang took the fasting pill and put it in her mouth. The fasting pill turned into a warm current that flowed down her throat and into her lungs. Then, a huge pain spread throughout her body. Yao Nyang wailed in pain and curled up her body. It was as if there were countless small steel knives in every corner of her body, constantly scraping and drilling. It was so painful that she was in a daze. Auntie, I'm in so much pain. Yao Nyang looked at Ning Shu with a ferocious expression. Auntie, save me. Ning Shu comforted her. Bear with it, bear with it. At the same time, he lit some agarwood, which could calm the mind. Holy shit, Ning Shu, what did you do to Yao Nyang in there? The earthworms outside the barrier heard the inhuman screams inside and rammed into the barrier. If you dare to hurt Yao Nyang, I won't let you off the hook. You're such a bad person. You usually don't care about others, but now you're here with a child. You're a pervert. Han Chen had no idea what was going on, so he frowned and tried to calm the earthworm down. It's fine. Elder won't harm Yao Nyang. Brat, get lost. Don't talk to me. He was anxious to death, but this brat was making sarcastic remarks. Han Chen, Ning Shu shouted towards the outside, get lost. Don't yell outside. Yao Nyang took the marrow cleansing pill, so it's normal for her to feel some pain. Fasting pill? Han Chen was stunned. Why would there be a fasting pill all of a sudden? A sense of disappointment welled up in his heart. If Yao Nyang had a fasting pill, she wouldn't need him anymore. She wouldn't need him to search for pill formulas and medicinal herbs. Hearing that it was a fasting pill, the earthworm didn't dare to yell anymore. It could only mumble and pace around the door. Why did you lock me outside too? Yao Nyang hugged her arms and curled up, trembling in fear. Her clothes were stained brown by her sweat. These were the impurities in her meridians. The impurities were discharged from her pores, and gradually, the stains turned black. Her clothes were wet, and at the same time, there was a disgusting stench. The torturous marrow cleansing finally came to an end. Yao Nyang's body was weak, and she collapsed on the bed. It took her a long time to regain her strength. As soon as she raised her hand, she smelled the disgusting stench. Stinks. I'm going to take a bath. Yao Nyang leaped up from the bed and rushed to the door, but she was bounced back by the barrier. Ning Shu removed the barrier, and Yao Nyang ran out. Covering her face, she ran to the kitchen and poured water on her body without caring about anything else. As soon as Yao Nyang appeared, the stench on her body dissipated with the wind. Han Chen couldn't help but cover his nose. Stinks. At the same time, he felt a little envious. Although it stinks, it's a normal reaction after marrow cleansing. Looking at the woman leaning against the door, Han Chen couldn't help but want to ask where the marrow cleansing pill came from. The earthworm found clothes for Yao Nyang to change into. When Yao Nyang came out again, she exuded an ethereal aura. Her skin was glowing, as if it was plated with a layer of gentle light. This was the effect of the marrow cleansing pill. It could expel the impurities in one's body. Ning Shu said to Yaonyang, "Start cultivating now." Nourishing her meridians with spiritual energy and slowly cultivating, Yaonyang's strength could steadily increase. "Auntie, can we go out?" "Of course." He spent some time teaching Yaonyang so that she wouldn't make a big mistake or hurt her lungs. There were some things that Yaonyang should understand, and there were some principles that Yaonyang should understand. Only when one knew the darkness of the world and still chose to be kind was true kindness. The current Yaonyang could only be said to be pure, not kind. Yaonyang started cultivating. Her progress was much faster than before, but compared to people with smooth meridians, Yaonyang's speed couldn't be considered fast. Ning Shu wasn't in a hurry. Many people didn't have a foundation and couldn't even enter the door of cultivation. Yaonyang could at least enter the door. Ning Shu felt that Yaonyang's foundation was definitely not good. She might not even have the aptitude to cultivate. Now that she could cultivate, she should be satisfied. After obtaining Ning Shu's permission, Yaonyang ran to Han Chen and said that she wanted to go out with him to play in a crowded place. Han Chen asked, "Is your auntie coming with us?" "Yes, it's rare for my auntie to come here." "Of course she wants to bring me around to play," Yaonyang said. Han Chen was excited and nervous. He nodded and said, "Okay, you don't know much about the outside world. I'll be your guide." To be able to recognize a powerful spirit beast in human form, it had to be a divine beast. It was beyond the realm of spirit beasts. It was a powerful existence. "Okay." Yaonyang bounced back to her room and began to pack her things. Ning Shu handed her a spatial meson. With this thing, she didn't have to carry big and small bags. Ning Shu taught Yaonyang how to use this thing and told her not to show it around. Meson spaces were treasures. They could store many things. It was an independent space. Han Chen quickly absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy. When he went out, he wouldn't encounter such a place. Han Chen spent the night in a nervous mood. When he thought about going out with 2 women tomorrow, he was indescribably nervous. And they were both spirit beasts. /BK. Chapter 3584. The next day, Han Chen wasn't in good spirits. Yaonyang even asked him what was wrong. On the phone, Han Chen only said that the cultivation problem had been solved. After breakfast, the family, including the earthworm, left together. Yaonyang didn't want to bring the earthworm along, but the earthworm shamelessly insisted on following them. It didn't trust Ning Shu at all, afraid that Ning Shu would lead Yaonyang astray. In the earthworm's heart, Ning Shu was a bad person. She squeezed it dry and even threatened it for no reason. In short, she was a bad woman. One is marked by the company one keeps. A cute and innocent 2-legged monster like Yaonyang would also become sophisticated and annoying when she was by Yaonyang's side. The earthworm wanted Yaonyang to maintain this pure heart and not be tainted by the filthy world. Ning Shu glanced at the earthworm. Of course, he knew what the earthworm was thinking. She was filthy? If Yaonyang didn't teach her what should be taught, she would have to rely on herself to figure out her life. When the time came, it would be better to understand the truth from the beginning. Han Chen felt a lot of pressure. Suddenly, with 3 spirit beasts with him, he was filled with a sense of security. Although he didn't gain much here, he got to know 3 spirit beasts, and they seemed to be very powerful. It was worth it to be on good terms with strong cultivators. Ning Shu took out a black umbrella and held it. Yaonyang asked, "It's not raining, why are you holding an umbrella?" Ning Shu, "It can protect against the sun. We have to be exquisite piggy girls." The earthworm rolled its eyes. "Poor people are particular. When they kill people, their hands are covered in blood. I don't see anything wrong with you." The 3 of them didn't fly. Instead, they walked on 2 legs. Yaonyang didn't mind. Everything was new to her. Han Chen muttered in his heart. Why didn't they directly fly? Could it be that they were spirit beasts that couldn't fly? Along the way, Yaonyang collected a lot of herbs. She said that she could sell them for money and buy food. When she was young, she went out with her aunt, ate candied haws, and bought beautiful clothes. Yaonyang suddenly asked, "Auntie, where's that little brother?" "Little demon. He was locked up at home to cultivate." It was obvious that he was detained by the prefect. Speaking of which, she hadn't seen the little demon for a long time. She didn't know if the little demon had grown up. Probably not. Creatures like this had a very long growth cycle. Ning Shu was a little regretful that he didn't bring the little devil with him. He looked at the little girl who was the same size as him when they were young. Now, she had become slim and elegant, but he was still a little radish head. He would definitely stomp his feet in anger. Unfortunately, he didn't bring it with him. Even the abyssal prefect wouldn't allow her to see the little devil. Ning Shu was a little confused as to why the abyssal prefect was so wary of her. What else could she do to the little devil? Besides, the little devil was born in her world of reincarnation and would return to her world of reincarnation in the future. He didn't understand. What was she going to do to the little devil? How petty. "Oh, is that so? That's a pity," Yao Nyang said before throwing the matter to the back of her mind. However, Han Chen, who was standing to the side, heard these words in his heart and couldn't help but feel a little shocked. Could it be that there were other transformed spirit beasts? He couldn't help but feel a little lost. Was it because he was too weak and had come into contact with too few things? Otherwise, why would he feel like there were spirit beasts in human form everywhere? The three of them came to the nearest town. There were often cultivators flying over the town on their swords, and there seemed to be quite a number of them. Han Chen's expression was a little serious. When he came this time, there weren't so many cultivators. Did something happen? Why did these cultivators gather here? As soon as they came out, Yao Nyang was very excited, like a bird that was released from a cage. The earthworm turned into a small earthworm and burrowed into the small bag on Yao Nyang's shoulder. With so many people around, she didn't want to be surrounded. "You can buy whatever you like," Han Chen said to Yao Nyang. Yao Nyang turned to look at him and asked, "Do you have money?" "I have money." He still had this kind of money that ordinary people had, but he didn't have much money for things like spirit stones. For things like food and clothes, he could still afford food, shelter, and transportation. Yao Nyang shook her head. "Forget it. What's yours is yours, not mine. I can't use your money." The earthworm poked its head out of the small bag. And it was very disgusting. "See, I taught you well, didn't I?" The earthworm proudly showed Ning Shu the results of its child rearing. Ning Shu snorted and didn't say anything. Han Chen said, "This is just a little money. Besides, you saved my life." Yao Nyang tilted her head and asked in confusion, "I saved you. Can I ask you to do anything?" Han Chen successfully choked. That wasn't the way to put it. It wasn't that he could do anything. Sometimes, the words of naive people were irresistible. You don't have to take it to heart. I saved you like I saved a bird that fell into a bird's nest. I didn't expect you to repay me at all. Yao Nyang didn't care about repayment at all. Han Chen was touched and a little resentful. In the end, he was too weak to give her what she wanted. With two beauties around, the number of people who turned to look was very high. Ning Shu's service was different from that of the Gidge of this world. It could even be said that he was a traitor. Men and women were all looking at him. Ning Shu was extremely calm as if he didn't feel these gazes. There were also some men who were looking at Ning Shu and Yao Nyang with strange eyes. Han Chen frowned. This group of people was really too high profile. He wanted to say something, but when he saw Ning Shu's cold face, the words were stuck in his throat. Yao Nyang asked, "Why are they looking at us?" That kind of gaze was very uncomfortable. Ning Shu said calmly, "Because we are beautiful. If they don't look at beautiful things, do they look at ugly things? Like earthworms, no one looks at them." "Earthworm, fuck your mother." Han Chen wanted to cover his face. Was there a need to be so proud? He previously thought that Yao Nyang was a little naive, but now it seemed that spirit beasts were generally naive. It wasn't just admiring beautiful things. It was a gaze that was filled with color. There were so many cultivators in the town. If someone recognized them and insisted on robbing them, Han Chen didn't know if he could protect the two women. To protect the two naive women, Han Chen felt that the responsibility on his shoulders was heavy. After walking around for a while, Yao Nyang found an inn to stay in. As soon as he walked into the inn, he discovered that there were many cultivators staying in the inn. This made Han Chen's expression even more serious. There were so many cultivators flying around outside. There were actually so many people in the inn. These people were sitting together and discussing in low voices. When they saw that someone had come, their gazes all gathered on Ning Shu and Yao Nyang. As for Han Chen, he was directly ignored. Han Chen puffed out his chest and stood in front of the two women, blocking these gazes. They were all men, so they knew what they were thinking. /BK. Chapter 3585. A stinky man stood in front of them, successfully making these cultivators look away. What was so good about a stinky man? Please. The shopkeeper hurriedly came over to greet the three of them and asked if they wanted to eat or stay. 3 rooms, Han Chen said. The shopkeeper was a little troubled. I'm sorry, sir. There are no more 3 rooms. There are no empty rooms, but there is a lower room. The conditions and facilities of the lower room were definitely not as good as the upper room. Han Chen looked at Ning Shu. As a man, he didn't care much about it, but he didn't know if she would be used to it. This kind of person was obviously spoiled. Her aura didn't seem like someone who lived a poor life. For example, when he saw the senior uncle and the silver-haired man, he didn't feel that they lived a poor life. At most, they had heavy responsibilities and were fortunate. A person's temperament contained the path he had walked, the books he had read, and the things he had done. There was also strong confidence. It was hard to imagine that a person who had achieved nothing would have strong confidence. The confidence brought by strength was incomparable. In front of Ning Shu, Han Chen reflexively felt inferior and weak. There was nothing to support his strong confidence. What do you think? Do you want to stay in another place? Han Chen discussed with Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at him. No need. Stay here. But there's only 1 room. A place to shelter from the rain is enough. Sleeping didn't necessarily mean sleeping on a bed. Besides, she didn't need to sleep at all. All right. Han Chen asked the shopkeeper for the only lower room and asked, Shopkeeper, why are there so many cultivators suddenly gathered here? Don't you know? A treasure light flashed in the Zixia mountain in the west. It was bright for 2 days. Many cultivators were attracted here. A treasure had appeared. Usually, treasures were hidden. For such a high-profile appearance, it was either a peerless treasure or deliberately attracting people to die. And then it evolved. I see. Yao Nyang asked, What treasure is it? I don't know. Everyone is still searching. Maybe it's something powerful? The shopkeeper said with a smile. The inn's business was good, and he was in a good mood. Although it was a lower room, it was still considered clean. It was much simpler. The quilt was navy blue and looked dark. Yao Nyang found a vase and placed the bouquet inside, adding some color to the room. The earthworm came out of the pocket and said to Ning Shu, Do you want to see that treasure? Ning Shu, we'll see. What kind of treasure could there be? With the restrictions of the plane, it was impossible for something to be born that exceeded the capacity of the plane. The plane would not go so far as to create an uncontrollable thing. Therefore, Ning Shu would be the first to not believe that it was powerful and precious. Han Chen looked at the cramped room. It was too small. With the 3 of them squeezed together, Han Chen seemed to be able to smell the fragrance of a woman's body. It made him feel a little embarrassed. Han Chen said, Do you want to live in a commoner's house? The room is too small. There were so many houses in the town that there were bound to be people with empty houses. Ning Shu sat down, waved his hand and said, No need. Isn't this harming people? Harm people? Han Chen was stunned for a moment, and then his expression turned a little ugly. Will someone come to make trouble for us? Ning Shu touched his face and said narcissistically, Of course. Otherwise, it would be a waste of my face. Han Chen was speechless. Since he knew that his appearance was impactful and would make people have evil thoughts, why didn't he keep a low profile and cover it up? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Keep a low profile? No way. It wasn't easy for me to become beautiful, but you actually want me to hide it? What's the point of being beautiful? It's not for others to see. It's for my own happiness. There was no such thing as beauty being the original sin in her body. Not having the strength to protect beauty was the original sin. Yao Nyang asked in confusion, "Who's coming to make trouble for us? We didn't offend anyone." Ning Shu reached out and touched Yao Nyang's smooth skin. His hand slid to her chin and his index finger slightly lifted Yao Nyang's chin. With such a beautiful face, it would be wrong if no one coveted it. Gulp. When Han Chen saw the scene, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Oh my God! She must be a vixen. A woman with a charming face lifted the chin of another girl. Mature charm collided with naivety. It was too impactful. Han Chen felt his nose itch. He was afraid that his nose was going to bleed. The earthworm immediately jumped up and shouted at Ning Shu, "Damned woman, don't teach the child bad things. Such an innocent child shouldn't listen to such dirty things." Ning Shu let go of Yao Nyang's chin. "Just wait. Someone will definitely come later." Staying in the room of an ordinary person was the same as dragging ordinary people in. Just a little of the aftermath of a battle was enough to kill ordinary people. But Yao Nyang insisted. Some men's cultivation is more evil. They like to harvest yin to nourish yang. When they see a beautiful woman, the first thing they think of is sex and strength. Ah! The earthworm screamed and said to Yao Nyang, "Quickly cover your ears. Don't listen, don't listen." Ning Shu was speechless. What was going on? She was spreading the knowledge of puberty here. The earthworm's exaggerated behavior seemed to be too dirty to talk about. It wasn't a big deal to begin with, but the earthworm was so noisy. She shouldn't have brought the earthworm here. Han Chen also felt a little embarrassed and couldn't sit still. At night, the cold stars dotted the sky. It was quiet. There were some faint sounds as well as the sound of footsteps. The low-class room was suddenly filled with a smell. It seemed to be sleeping incense. Ning Shu lay on the bed. The corners of her mouth curled up. She closed her eyes and went back to sleep. The people outside the room heard the breathing of the person in the room. Obviously, he had lost consciousness. Using spiritual energy, they directly opened the door and chuckled. "Beauties." The invader rubbed his hands excitedly. If he offered these two women, he would definitely get a lot of money. He walked toward the bed with a rope in his hand, ready to tie the two women up. However, before he could touch the beauties on the bed, his hands were tied. In an instant, his body was entangled. He wanted to speak, but even his mouth was violently blocked. The invader was very frightened because he felt that there was something like a tree root in his mouth. It was rooted in his mouth and seemed to be reaching into his throat. Was she going to stab him in the stomach? Wasn't he unconscious? In the darkness, a clear female voice sounded. "Light the lamp." Thanks to the cultivation of calligraphy, he could see things even at night. He saw the man who was sleeping on the floor get up and take out a torch to light the lamp. There were two beautiful girls sitting on the bed, causing people to be lost in fanciful thoughts. However, the man's mind was torn apart. He was scared to death. How could he have other thoughts? Ooh. The man couldn't speak with his mouth stuffed. He could only make some sounds from his throat. /BK. Chapter 3587. He was looking for a virgin for his master, and a beautiful one at that. It would be even better if she was a cultivator. A cultivator's body was better than an ordinary woman's body, and it gave them more strength. Two top-notch women appeared today, and they came after receiving his master's orders. They just didn't expect the sailboat to come. There was only one man, and he didn't look very strong. There was almost no spiritual energy fluctuation on the two women. They didn't look very strong, and they could be dealt with a bit of knockout incense. This kind of knockout incense was specially made. Even women with cultivation would unconsciously inhale this kind of knockout incense. Because it carried spiritual energy, the body of a cultivator thirsted for spiritual energy. It would be absorbed by the body without anyone noticing. Ordinary women wouldn't be able to detect it. He couldn't figure out why these people didn't fall for it. This was too cruel. She controlled everyone in the inn. Otherwise, why would she say no? Han Chen was also very surprised. He looked at Ning Shu. Could it be that she had set up a barrier? It wasn't a barrier, but she had sealed the space of this room. No one outside could hear any movement inside, and no one could enter. A barrier might not have such an effect. The barrier could be broken. But the space wall wasn't so easy to break. Did she think that she was in prison for nothing? I was wrong, please spare me. This guy's knees were very soft. He directly knelt down and begged for mercy. I won't dare to do it again, I won't dare to do it again. A grown man cried. Snot and tears flowed down. He was incomparably pitiful. He was too spineless. He cried while observing the expressions of these people. He found that these people all had indifferent expressions, but the young girl revealed a look of pity. The man grabbed the hope of survival and made a move on Yao Nyang. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was possessed. I won't do such a thing again. I can chop off my own hand. Give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. It was quite appropriate to say that a strong man would cut off his wrist. Yao Nyang was a little uneasy. Her lips moved, but she didn't say anything. Yao Nyang, who had never encountered such a thing, was very confused. She didn't know how to deal with this matter. The man continued to work hard. He gritted his teeth and said, I can chop off a hand and a leg. Give me a chance, please. Ning Shu just watched the man's performance. Han Chen felt that he had no right to speak, so he kept his mouth shut. Earthworm looked on mockingly. That was the nature of two-legged monsters. They bullied the weak and feared the strong. When he did evil, it was simply terrifying. Regardless of whether it was killing other living beings, even if it was their own kind, they would not show any mercy. Earthworm felt that he shouldn't have brought Yao Nyang out. What was wrong with letting her live in the mountains? If he came out to live with these filthy humans, sooner or later, he would also become filthy. That damned woman was simply too hateful. She even purposely brought her out to taint Yao Nyang's body with human filth. For a moment, the man was the only one in the room acting out a one-man show. He cried and wailed by himself. Auntie, is there no chance for you to correct your mistakes? Ning Shu asked. Yes, it depends on what kind of mistake you made. Some mistakes are not qualified to be corrected. Ning Shu said, Miss, I'll take you to see something. Ning Shu grabbed Yao Nyang and prepared to teleport to a room. He wanted to take her to see something exciting. What are you going to do? If you want to go, let's go together. What are you going to do? Earthworm looked at Ning Shu warily. He was like an old hen protecting its chicks. All right, let's go together. Bring him along. Let's see if he has the right to correct his mistakes. Ning Shu directly set up a spatial tunnel. After all, there were too many people and the spatial treaty couldn't be used. At the same time, he made these people invisible to prevent them from being discovered. Too lazy to listen to the man begging for mercy, the vine reached into the man's mouth again. Come in. Ning Shu walked in front and dragged the man away. Yao Nyang hurriedly followed. Earthworm crawled onto Yao Nyang's shoulder. Han Chen hesitated for a moment before following. He was shocked. What kind of method was this? He had heard of flying in the sky and burrowing into the ground, but building a tunnel out of thin air was really unheard of. Soon, they appeared in a room. Before they saw anything, they smelled a sticky and sweet smell. Amidst the sweetness, there was a fishy smell. There was also the sound of panting. It was the sound of a woman in pain. Yao Nyang covered her mouth as she looked at the man on the bed. A young man was torturing a woman, doing indescribable things. The woman's expression was incomparably painful. Her entire face was contorted. It was hard to imagine what kind of pain this woman was enduring. Earthworm hurriedly used his tail to cover Yao Nyang's eyes. This was too fucking disgusting. Ooh. The man let out a sound from his throat, trying to remind his master that someone was watching his live porn. Han Chen felt that he had experienced countless embarrassing moments in a single day. As a man, it was inevitable for him to have some reaction when he saw such a scene. He silently stood back. What made Han Chen even more shocked was Ning Shu's method. With just a raise of his hand, he came to this room without anyone noticing. Han Chen's reverence grew even stronger. He could kill with just a raise of his hand. Why did he have to do this? It was obvious that he wanted to teach Yao Nyang a lesson. What should he do? He really wanted to hug his thigh. The man on the bed became more and more diligent. He changed all kinds of positions, torturing the woman until she was on the verge of death. At the last moment, she let out a cry of pain. Then her breathing became weaker and weaker. She died. The man slowly put on his clothes, not even looking at the dead woman on the bed. Earthworm sighed and let go of his tail. Yao Nyang saw the woman on the bed and screamed. She instantly alerted young Master Song. Who is it? Come out. He had already set up a barrier. How could anyone barge in? Come out. Yao Nyang covered her mouth. The miserable state of the woman on the bed exceeded Yao Nyang's image. She was a young and beautiful woman just a moment ago. Now she was shriveled. Her smooth skin was wrinkled and filled with wrinkles. She opened her mouth. She was like a dried corpse. Her skin had lost all its moisture. It was like tree bark. This was too challenging. Ning Shu said, "Do you think this little thief has the right to correct his mistake? If he has the right, then the woman on the bed is innocent. Is this fair to the woman on the bed?" Yao Nyang covered her mouth and shook her head with tears flowing down. This was too challenging. Yao Nyang didn't even have the slightest bit of pity left in her heart. Who is it? Come out. Young Master Song only heard someone speak. It wasn't a single person, but he couldn't see anyone. Although young Master Song was called Young Master, he was actually very old. Now he looked like a young man. That was because he took the vitality of women all year round, especially virgins. Chapter 3588. Humans were really an amazing race. Cultivation was like fighting against the heavens, and they had to fight for all sorts of resources to replenish themselves. All sorts of cultivation techniques were born. There were also those who walked the crooked path and created evil techniques. Since they couldn't win against the heavens, they would fight from their own kind. Women seemed to have an inexplicable power. There were emperors who used women's menstrual blood to refine pills in order to obtain immortality. Some even used imperial concubines to obtain immortality. Some cultivators used women's yin to replenish their yang to obtain power. Women could give birth to children and life. It was indeed a magical thing. Ning Shu deactivated his invisibility and appeared in the room. Who are you people? Young Master Song's eyes lit up. He was still thinking about these two women in his heart when they appeared. But they suddenly appeared in his room and didn't even touch the barrier. At this moment, his mind was still clear. Especially when he saw the person wrapped in vines, he squinted his eyes and sat on the bed. There was also a woman's corpse lying on the bed. Yao Nyang felt that he was extremely evil and his body gave off an uncomfortable aura. Yo, beauties, why are you looking for me? Are you lonely in the middle of the night? Ning Shu said calmly, Yes, I'm bored, empty, and lonely, so I came to find you to play. Okay, tell me how you want to play. Young Master Song was quite strong and was very calm when facing people who came to find him. Ning Shu was like an innocent little girl. He smiled and said, I'll listen to you. I can play with you how you want to play. Damn, what kind of conversation was this? Obscene and shameless. Earthworm looked down in disdain. He was teaching a kid bad things. Yao Nyang felt really uncomfortable and couldn't sit still. Young Master Song smiled. He leaned his body and placed his arm on the pillow. He tilted his head and looked at Ning Shu. Of course, it's a game that can allow you to reach the heavens. You will fall in love with such a game. Ning Shu said to Yao Nyang, How do you want to play? Yao Nyang's face was ashen white. She said softly, Auntie, I want to leave first. This person's gaze was really evil. She felt like her clothes were being ripped off by him. He just sat beside the corpse as if nothing had happened. How could there be such an evil person in this world? Han Chen whispered to Ning Shu, Forget it, this person has a very strong background, and he himself is also very strong. Ning Shu only said, Bear with it for now, the more you think about it, the angrier you get. Take a step back, and the more you think about it, the more you'll lose. What was there to endure? It didn't exist. So what if her background was strong? In terms of background, She had the entire organization behind her. Was she strong or not? She could drag Skeleton along and fight her way to their door. Fearless. Han Chen, he didn't really understand the violent tempers of these spirit beasts. Ning Shu turned to Yao Nyang and asked, "How do you think we should deal with these two? Can I say kill him?" Yao Nyang was very upset. She had come out to play, but she didn't expect to encounter such a terrible thing. Yao Nyang almost vomited at the sight of the dead woman lying on the bed. Imagining herself in that woman's shoes, Yao Nyang shuddered. Ning Shu smiled. "Of course." Wu, the tied-up man, begged young Lord Song for help. Young Lord Song didn't care about this person at all. Whether he lived or died, it didn't matter to him. He was just a servant who helped him find women. Even if he didn't, there were others who would do it for him. One less wouldn't make a difference. But what he cared more about was what these people relied on to dare to kill his people in front of him. The vines on the man's body began to tighten. The vines in his mouth directly went down his throat and into his stomach. Blood gushed out of the man's mouth. His eyes were wide open, and he soon breathed his last. Ning Shu retracted the vines. The man fell to the ground with a plop. His body was covered in blood, and he died with his eyes open. The thick smell of blood filled the entire room. Young Lord Song's smile was a bit stiff, and he was secretly on guard. Vines? He had some impression of this attack, but he couldn't remember where he had heard of it. Young Lord Song didn't plan to fight these people head-on. He wanted to leave, but he was stopped by an invisible thing. Set up a barrier? Young Lord Song took out a white bone. This was his weapon. This white bone was lustrous like jade. It didn't look like a bone, but more like a piece of jade. The white bone gradually grew bigger and spun in the air to attack the three of them. But it was stopped by the invisible thing. The white bone crashed into the spatial wall again and again, but it couldn't break through. Ning Shu felt that after comprehending the spatial laws, fighting was much more convenient. He didn't need to use much strength. He could use the spatial laws to lock people up. Catching a turtle in a jar. Fighting could be very elegant. Young Lord Song's expression was very ugly. He couldn't hit them, and he couldn't run. This time, he had really attracted trouble. How stupid! Attacking without investigating clearly, what the hell? Ning Shu stretched out his vines. Instantly, the room was filled with vines. These vines quickly extended towards young Lord Song. Damn, red-clothed demoness? Young Lord Song was dumbfounded. He hurriedly dodged the vines. When was the red-clothed demoness? She hadn't appeared in so many years. Wasn't the red-clothed demoness a red-clothed woman? This woman was now dressed in black. Could she be the descendant of the red-clothed demoness? Otherwise, she wouldn't have the same attacking method. Young Lord Song didn't have the heart to fight anymore. He only wanted to escape. The main thing was that the red-clothed demoness had destroyed several cities with her endless vines. She destroyed the cities, but the cities kept humans captive. That was how the current situation was formed. There were various sects, countries, and royal families. Although it was not judged by later generations that the red-clothed demoness did the right thing, but the red-clothed demoness' ferocity could not be erased. Young Lord Song only wanted to protect his life. The most important thing was to spread the news that the red-clothed demoness or her descendant had appeared. He was afraid that the red-clothed demoness had appeared with a mission. Who knew, it might be another change in the world. Ning Shu exclaimed, "How do you know me? How many years had it been?" According to the flow of time in this world, it was at least a few hundred years. Young Lord Song, what the hell? How do you know me? Is it the red-clothed demoness herself? No, wasn't she a red-clothed demoness? Why is she dressed in black? Han Chen was also shocked. He looked at Ning Shu in shock. Damn, red-clothed demoness? Is this for real? The red-clothed demoness was a spirit beast? It had been a few hundred years. She had disappeared, so why did she suddenly appear? Even if Han Chen didn't plan to go against Ning Shu, he felt his legs go soft. He was afraid of JGP. Young Lord Song continued to dodge the vines. But the vines that covered the sky were unable to dodge at all. His hands and legs were wrapped by the vines. He hung in midair and swayed. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.